Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Pickles. This is Stat Check 129, Wait and Talk, featuring Christian from Veizla. I hope everybody is doing well on this fine, slightly earlier day. It's 10 p.m. UK time right now because we keep our schedule for the EST boys.
Oh,
So hopefully our
wow.
UK viewership is enjoying being an hour earlier. Christian, you picked a good week to join us, being in Sweden and all. So I hope everybody's doing well today. We have the usual absolutely nothing to talk about because the balance data slate is this week. And we did our review of it last week. So we're here. We're going to talk about Anthony's expeditions over to Europe. We'll be talking a little bit about Veizla and the efforts Christian has going on in Sweden, and the usual. We'll probably do some vamping about things we want out of the balance data slate, and we'll have questions at the end. I hope everybody's doing well today. I'm Innes. Anthony and Christian are with me today. Anthony, why don't you start us off? How you been doing, man? How's your last couple of weeks been?
I mean, most things have been pretty good. The whole part where I had like the flu and almost exploded was not optimal. I would like not wish that on my worst enemy, but yeah, that was definitely an experience. I would prefer not to repeat. But aside from that, the part where I got to go to Poland and hang out with my friends and do stuff was pretty cool. I liked that.
Dead to
We
me.
m- we moved, as you can kind of, gestures vaguely at all the boxes and shit behind me, as you can kind of see. Um, yeah, it was good. It's been a good, very busy, very hectic couple of weeks. I've spent the last 2 weeks like profusely apologizing to coaching people, being like, "I'm dying, I'm sorry." We've got a Jeremy.
Oh,
Um,
someone knows the stats.
yeah, I mean that's yeah, dude. I can't even read numbers, so that's important that we have someone that does. But yeah, it's aside from that stuff. I mean, it's been like mostly good, exciting life stuff, but it's just been like I said,
Busy, busy,
hectic,
busy.
kind of busy. Also, I really don't want to make tier lists, so I missed that
That's
episode on
understandable.
purpose.
To be fair, it's technically not a tier list. We just put it in a tier list format so Reddit doesn't confuse themselves.
I mean, they're gonna do that anyway.
We are
It's
joined by an impromptu Jeremy, but I'll finish off by asking Christian. Christian, how you doing? Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm all good, and thank you so much for inviting me to this great show. It's actually the first show I picked up when I joined into the Warhammer 40k world last year. So been most seeing almost audio shows, and here I am. So thank you so much for letting me coming on.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, having seen the work you've been doing over the last year after being involved in the hobby for so little time. It would have been rude not to at some point have you on, so we appreciate you reaching out. Why don't you start us off by telling us a bit about what you do in Warhammer? What is Veizla? Why should people care?
Yeah, why should people care? I think that giving a bit of a backstory, maybe that's a super long one, but I mean, I've been involved in esports and gaming since 2000, and actually before that, I was running as a 13-year-old or something like that, and a Warhammer association in Sweden. I was playing fantasy at that time. I didn't paint; I just played. But basically, spent three days a week in this association club and with a lot of great people from Eskilstuna in Sweden.
okay.
But then when the internet and gaming took over my life, I actually left the hobby, unfortunately. And then this spring, after leaving a company that I've been working for the last 15 years, DreamHack slash ESL slash EFG, which is the world's largest esport company. I was a bit bored and I was looking into what I wanted to do. And just one day, I wanted to watch that Warhammer show about the Blood Angels. I went down into the cellar and picked up my 20-year-old Blood Angels, started to paint, and then less than 2 months later, I had connected with Jesper and Axel from Team Sweden. And we had decided that we needed to create this Veizla to try to get the Swedish Warhammer 40k community together, because I just felt that this community is so awesome, so many great people that I met, so inclusive. So I don't know, I felt a lot, to be honest. Like 1 month into it, I have been more outdoor than I probably have been the last 5 years, just being playing Warhammer matches every day. And I felt that we needed to get more people involved and make it easier, because Warhammer is so deep and hard. And I felt that if it's so challenging for me, it's probably almost impossible for others. So that's why we created Veizla.
Very fair. And you guys have been doing a ton of stuff. You did the stream coverage for Team Sweden at WTC. You guys are running events now. You've been doing a bunch of stuff like TTS leagues and doing stream commentary of that and a bunch of other things like that. So how did that all kick off? Like, what's the goal been with that?
Yes, I mean, for me, it was just like I couldn't find the information. There were no big Discord in Sweden. I was playing Blood Angels, and actually, probably that's how I found StatCheck and Innes, because you played at that very time a Blood Angels tournament and won it, or went really high, or were high on the ranking, as you always
Alpine,
are.
baby.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know exactly, but for me, it was just hard to even discover who should I trust into, because there's so many great content creators, but me being pretty competitive of me, I just needed to figure out like who should I really listen to and who should I trust. And StatCheck actually with you guys and in your Discord really, really helped me. I asked 1 million stupid questions the first month, but then I had to also move on in my can we say Swedish community. So for us, I think it went just step by step in the way of getting a Discord up. Now we have over 1,100 people, mainly people from Sweden, into it, and it went actually really quickly after we launched. But also in the way of trying to cover Team Sweden, because even though we want to help rookies and everyone across the board, I think that looking at the national teams and the WTC, which is the pinnacle, the very high point of the Warhammer 40k competitiveness, I felt that we need to kind of put some lights on that one. So very quickly we decided, let's do a stream at WTC to follow Team Sweden. Just want to say, even though I work with the esport industry, I've been running like Dota leagues, Counter-Strike leagues, a lot of things. I'd never done the production, but I took it on myself. So I did it everything from like Square Zero in 2 weeks. I went down to Belgium with all the equipment and then broadcasted it. So that was an adventure by itself, but it turned out really great. Of course, Sweden would have hoped would have won, but it did come fourth, and it was some really epic matches. So what we're doing now with Veizla is trying to basically do things that can support both the Swedish, the Nordic, but also the global Warhammer 40k community. Of course, the global part is more competitive, if we could say like that, where the Swedish side is more, supporting local tournaments, associations, rookies, the hobby side, all the Warhammer stuff, so to speak. I don't know, probably we can say more, but I think the highlights have been the WTC, the Swedish Championship that we ran in October, and now, as you said, we also do some TTS leagues. But what is it, 1.5 week ago or two, maybe, we announced Veizla Mega, which is our first big, can we say, event that will feature over 200 people in a 5-man team setting that we will have in Sweden in June. And that's, of course, is a big step up for everything going on in the Nordics, but it's also a bit of a showing how great the Sweden and the Nordics Warhammer 40k is doing, because it's more tournament than ever. It's more people coming to each tournament, and I mean that's a global trend. And hopefully, Veizla Mega can be a part of kind of taking it even to the next level, or embody this great movement that is happening.
Yeah, it's very awesome to see, like, between that and because you guys are running it at an actual convention in Sweden, right?
Yeah, correct. So, I mean, we didn't speak so much about it, but I've been within esports and gaming for the last 20 years, where 15 years of those were with DreamHack and the companies that though kind of merged together with. So actually, we will be where DreamHack had been run for the last 25 years almost. I was at this convention center in 2001 for my first DreamHack when I played the Counter-Strike tournament. Unfortunately, DreamHack left Jönköping, which has been this home for the last 20 years, and moved the Swedish event to Stockholm. Of course, they have a lot of great global events. And my friends who've been left DreamHack a couple of years ago actually are now creating a new event called Glitched. And that would be by the founder of DreamHack back in 1994. He's one of these founders. And as they are great friends with me, we discussed, and I said, well, hey guys, don't you have a lot of floor space? I think we can put on a great Warhammer show, a great Warhammer event in conjunction with it. So it would be part of this big event. So Veizla Mega is sure a team tournament, but you will also get a solo RTT on the Friday. But also in conjunction with everything Warhammer going on, there will be a LAN, there will be Counter-Strike. They announced GeoGuessr as a European stop there. There will be music in the evenings. There will be parties. There will be a lot going on. So, thousands and thousands of people coming there, and hopefully many haven't really played Warhammer before, or haven't been really into RP, and will be introduced, maybe paint their first model or see the first tournament. But of course, we want to have a competitiveness too to it. That's why we're running a team tournament.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the kind of growth of Warhammer events as a side event on like these other big ones. Like obviously we had the Art of War show match with like the Team USA stuff at the actual DreamHack event in Austin last year. I say or Dallas.
Dallas,
Which was like a Warhammer event at a super big event like that. They've obviously got this one now at Glitched. It's really really cool to see some more like growth of the 40K, like being able to put its space in around these other big name gaming spaces, right? Where I'm saying, hey, this is a thing that exists. People can get a bunch of exposure to it. And this is a thing that people want to see. And it's really awesome. Like for us personally, like with trying to raise the level of the bar on the information that's out there for people, seeing people take that and run with it and go, okay, there's so many more people playing Warhammer now. Let's get this in front of more eyes. It's just awesome for us as well. I think I put the noise out to Team Scotland about getting a team over for Sweden, but if that falls through, I'm going to start messaging Anthony, like, Anthony, you're coming to Sweden.
I think it's at like a reasonable enough time that it maybe could happen.
Will be
Brian,
fantastic. I know we screw over Jeremy that he actually is having a big team tournament in Canada, and it was actually one of the few, or one of the that we had on the radar. I know it was a local Swedish tournament also happening at the same time, which was a big bummer. With convention centers, you just have to stick with the dates you have.
Figuring out that kind of thing is hard.
But it's so many. I don't know. I think it's like over 2,000, or how many tournaments is it a year?
Yeah,
there's always going to be some kind of overlap, and the reality is that like I'm going to be all the way out in Edmonton, so like there isn't going to be a huge amount of overlap, but I would have loved to make it out there.
See, all I always say here, Jeremy, ditch Games Workshop, come over to Sweden.
I don't know. They finally brought an open to Canada, so I kind of have to support that for now,
isn't it?
Because those
100%.
events are a blast, and the Canadian community is coming out in force for it. So I'm super excited about that. But yeah, no, I absolutely love the work that Christian, you've been doing. It's been fantastic to see how you've kind of united that Swedish community. I've got a whole bunch of questions for you for later in the show, because I'm curious about some of the things that you've gone through in that.
Yeah, it's been from like a personal standpoint, just seeing the Swedish community go from being one that you knew existed. You had seen some events. Obviously, I'm quite close with Neil Carr, who's out in Sweden, so I've seen a decent amount of it. But seeing it come and being just like, okay, this is actually huge in the online space suddenly from kind of nowhere has been very interesting and gives a good framework for any other countries who are out there. Like, hey, how do we get ourselves noticed on the global stage? We'll start doing some stuff like what Veizla's doing, because if you want to do it, there's the blueprints there. If France wants people to start knowing who their players are, this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not only me. I mean, I think that I joined into this community and I was just fascinated about what was going on. And I think that, of course, Anthony in the US and Ines in the UK and Jeremy in the Canada, like you guys are that's three really powerhouses when it came to Warhammer 40K, with so many events, so many great things happening. I think in Sweden, what's really cool is actually that people are traveling between the different cities. So like the normally it's like someone is running something in Västerås and it's coming 100 people there, and then that person and that team, they go to Umeå or to Gothenburg or to Malmö. So it's like it is a scene, but it's not fully structured in the way that maybe we can see in esports, which is like many miles ahead, because it's been crazy years. But I felt at home because this is how I was used to having a community. But I was surprised that they were not really can we say, a digital footprint. Everyone was sitting in their small messenger channels of 10 to 100 people, which is super great, and they keep on going. But I do think that it's really hard to break into those. So for the first time for me to find a match and so on, that was actually pretty tricky, and I was lucky. But you need to be a bit crazy and maybe I would say outgoing. And I think that within Warhammer 40K and can we say this nerd culture, maybe not everyone have the same type of fortune that I have of being crazy. Hey, hello, who are you? I want to speak to you. Can we play a game? And that's what I think that Veizla and many other online communities are really helping to kind of like where should I ask? Because it takes 2 hours to even figure out which clipper you should buy. That's just Warhammer 40k to me, and that's a lot of time, hours on YouTube, and you don't know who to listen to. On Veizla, we've been very happy that the Swedish community is it's amazing. I'm asking them, how should I paint my Necro army right now, and in details, and I asking many questions, but I also get inspired what they are already doing. So that's why I love it.
Christian's a Necron player. Oh, sorry, that's it. You're gonna go.
Yeah, I know. So I started with the
You were
Blood
just a good
Angels.
Blood
I
Angel
was
player.
happy, and then when the codex came out, I didn't really hit it, and I wish that I talked with you actually, Ines, because I wanted to play Dreadnoughts, and I didn't figure out that you can actually play this bloodless one. So I actually swapped
That's new,
army,
to be
and
fair.
then actually I lost a bit of the connection with playing the game, and I think that's also showing how hard Warhammer 40k is. A very hardcore type of hobby. And even for someone like me who are very invested into it, it can go a couple of months where you don't play a game, and that's unfortunate and bad. That that's what I'm trying to defeat.
Yeah, 40k forever remains that eternal treadmill. While you're running it, it doesn't feel like it's going that much, but the second you stop, you're like, wow, I've missed so much that's going on right now. Especially if you're a Space Marine player. There's 4 new boxes of models that came out in the last 3 months or something.
That's
You're
because
never sure.
Space Marines aren't an army; they're models as a service. You just, every
Exactly.
couple of weeks, you just buy a new box because that's what you need to keep the train going.
Yeah, but if you do, they do reward you with a lot of victory points. It's quite good at doing that.
I mean,
Right.
It's been very strong here the last couple of months for sure. So mistakes happen. I think I did all the mistakes, and everyone advised me don't do like this. I bought so many boxes, and then I cut everything, and then I had panic because I didn't even know how to assemble it, and I done all the mistakes. But here I am.
All
We've
you
all
need is
been
an
there.
iron will and the ability to stick with it even after making a mistake, and you too can enjoy Warhammer.
100%.
All right, we will circle back around and we will have a chat with Christian some more later. But Jeremy, how you been?
I've been doing pretty well. I am very eager for winter to be over. I'm not usually one to say that, but I took a tumble on the ice earlier today, and I am definitely feeling my age. But other than that, been doing well. This past weekend, I was at a little teams RTT. A couple of the universities and college clubs here wanted to throw down against each other. So Rickard graciously hosted the event, and Dan was very generous and gave us the Red Dragon for the day. And then they ended up being short a team. So Rickard turned to me and went, "You want to pull a team of ringers together?" And I went, "Sure." So I just grabbed a bunch of tournament players and said, "Okay, we're going to show these kids how the game's actually played." But of course, we were the ringer team, so we couldn't win a single round. So the rule was that whatever team we played, they got the win, but they only got the diff points that they actually scored against us. And so I think the most was the winning team or the second place team took 33 points from us out of the in 5-man teams.
So Jeremy spent his weekend bullying children.
I did.
Look, 33 points in 5s is like
that's pretty
functional.
respectable.
That's like okay, That's
Yeah.
not too bad.
It would, but I will say that it was on the back of 2 15-5s.
That's pretty good. That's what I'm saying. In 5s, 33, not so bad.
It's not crazy.
In 8s,
yeah, they paired to their strengths, and then 3 people got bust.
All right, fair enough.
But it was a good time.
Team USA and pod scores,
Yeah, I mean, look, not this
You
year.
got to farm them somehow.
Yeah, they gotta. That's some team stat check against Tryhard Romania, experience.
All right, Jeremy, do you want to tell us all about the stats for the last week of whatever this balance patch is called? What do we call it? The Eldari patch?
Yeah, I don't know. The mess of the Guard FOMO box followed by the Eldari Codex followed by the Guard Codex came out that I ended up with plus Grotmus. I think I had 4 different metas in the space of 6 weeks. Just broken down so people could actually sort it by what's there. For anyone interested in following along at home, Cliff has uploaded the last couple weeks, just not this past weekend, to the dashboard. So it has been updated almost entirely. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm just going to talk about the last 2 weeks of data, specifically focusing on the full meta that we're sitting in right now. So Eldari Codex, Guard Codex in full swing, every single Grotmus detachment, all that. So in terms of numbers, we're talking about 1,700 players and about 4,000 matches, so 8,000 games when you consider them from 2 ends. So it's a pretty fleshed out data set, which is kind of fun. Let's start at the bottom because these armies just make me sad. The bottom 5 armies. Does anyone want to guess 2 of them?
Sisters,
Yep, they are the worst army in the game.
Drakari,
No.
Black Templars.
Yep.
Dark Angels.
Yep.
How? Oh,
Admech.
makes me so mad.
Yep.
CSM.
Definitely not. You won't
Maybe
guess it. Well, actually, you might because they're actually still really strong, but no one's playing them. Thousand Suns.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Sure.
That
I think
that
that's
army
very
is still terrifying to play into, but when you have,
I think every
fewer
Thousand Suns
players,
player is like in a blood pact to never Doombolt an Eldar player. Just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not getting nerfed.
They get out there and they like use Twist of Fate instead. They're like, dude, I'm gonna take away your aspect host, Dave, instead of killing your whole unit. Boom, what's up?
All right, so I'll run through this real quick. So, Sisters, 1.3% of the meta, a 35.7% win rate.
Wow.
And they did manage
That's
a single top 4, so they do have an overrep of 0.69. Nice.
Who let Scott Ketchum play a tournament? Was it actually him? I don't know. I was just a guess.
I don't think it was. Maybe it was, but so
We'll
then we have
check.
Thousand Suns, just ever so slightly represented with 1.2% of the meta, a 41.6% win rate. Couldn't manage a top 4 though. So
sad.
Admech, 1.9%, so like 50% more of them than Thousand Suns or Sisters, but a 43% win rate. Also no top 4s.
No.
Then we have
I
Black
think it was
Templars.
Jeffrey Kolodner, the other savior of Sisters.
That would make sense. Then we have Black Templars, 27 players, so 1.6% of the meta. They had a 43.1% win rate, but they managed an event win, which meant, but that was also their only top 4, so they have an over of 0.56. And then rounding out the bottom, we have Dark Angels, 56 players, 3.3% of the meta, so twice as many as there are Black Templars, and they managed a 44.1% win rate. They did win one event, and they managed an additional 4 top 4s for 5 of them for a 1.35 overrep. So even though their win rate's quite low, it's like edge of low. So
They're still a real army, kind of.
Yeah. All right. And then the top 5. You'll guess 3 of these almost right away.
Somehow Imperial Knights. I just know it will be.
Yep. They're number 5.
Yeah, sure. Space Marines are not, but they should be.
Yep.
Chaos Demons probably is up there.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. 100%. They're number 1.
Easily Chaos Demons, yeah.
Eldar?
Yep. They're number 2.
Custodes? Custodes are also
No.
no. Custodes players still haven't figured out to just play Solar Spearhead.
Because
God
there's number
bless them.
6, so they're just out.
Orcs?
The 2,
Guard?
Pardon?
Orcs
Nope.
Guard?
Nope.
Knight.
the 2 that you're missing are Chaos Knights and GSC.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Okay.
all
Yeah,
three
Christian
GSC
got the Chaos
players.
Knight one. Yeah, so Demons
Oh.
are the winningest army of the last couple weeks. They had a 57.5% win rate. They made up 4.5% of the meta with 3 event wins and 6 top 4s. They had a 1.18. However, we always know that things are hiding in there. So let's just really quickly go down and take a look at that lovely, lovely Legion of Excess number. So if we look at the last couple weeks, Chaos Demons is looking at, so they had 35 of their 77 players were Legion of Excess, and they had a 66.5% win rate.
It's probably too high, guys.
Still not a real
Yeah.
army.
That's probably
Not a
bit
real
much.
army. It's terrible.
Can't hurt you.
I
I want to
might
give a
change
special
tomorrow, I
shout out
guess.
to the 6 players who played Scintillating, who managed a 58.3%, which was perfectly balanced out by the 6 Blood Legion players who had a 42.9% win rate.
No.
Oh, and the 6 Plague Legion players who had 42%. So
Nah, Plague Legion's really cool. I have never
I
experienced
think Plague
pain.
Legion is actually very cool and has a bit more play in there than the 2 and 3
I've
average.
never watched pain like someone losing the Gladius Gravis Captain to Cankerblight.
Oh, that's funny. I've seen some pretty bad like Blade Wardens die to it deals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Blade,
there's
Blade
some-
Champions, Gazgul and Abaddon, they hold the Golden Grail, though. I think that's the best you can get.
No, Makari. Like, goodbye, 2 up.
Oh, that is sad. Yeah.
All right.
Do you
So
get
yeah,
to
that's
pick
that
the
breakdown.
model, or you just pick a unit?
It's when you fill a battle test, the controlling player picks a model.
Okay.
Yeah, so they look at that and they kind of go, well, if I'm going to lose a model, I kind of fuck up my coherency, so I guess that has to go.
Well, no, I meant like the Nurgle player can't be like that squad of Gazgul and 2 Meganobs and Makari. Goodbye, Makari, right? Like that's not how it works.
That should be how it works.
That would be very
You should
fun,
get
though.
to pick, yeah.
Go back to being able to pick your opponent's casualties.
No.
But when Abaddon's by himself.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. Eldari, 157 players, so 9.2% of the meta. They are the most represented army in, like, just period. I think if you put Marines together, they barely edge them out.
Okay.
Too many Eldar players already.
They have had 4 event wins and 15 top 4s for a 1.45 over rep and a 56.8% win rate. However, as always, there are things hiding in here. So, for example, we have 6 people who played Ghosts of the Webway who had a 40% win rate.
Okay.
But then we had 53 people who were playing the Ynnari detachment devoted to Ynyad for a 61.7% win rate.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We had 57 people playing Aspect Host for a 55% win rate, which is
too high, but not too
too far out. Like I think a couple small point tweaks in that are and that.
What was the overrep on devoted to Ynyad? Just out of curiosity.
Wasn't most of the like undefeated and event wins actually in Aspect Host though?
I can check for that right now. We're gonna make sure that I don't crash myself out when I do this, though. Haha.
If I remember right, there was like Aspect Host had a lower win rate, but the actual 1, 2, 3, winning.
4. I'm just gonna look at top 4s.
Was being done by them.
It's about an even split actually.
Okay, never mind then.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of the top 4s over the last like month have been Aspect Host, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 have been Ynnari.
Okay, fine.
So, and they're being played at about the same rate, so it's just more. Yeah. They're both
those damn Ghosts of the Webway players holding down the win rate for good old fashioned Eldar unionists.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no union on this planet that's stronger than the Eldar Union.
It's true. Don't forget the one Brave Seer Council player in the last 2 weeks. Sorry, Boone, but apparently no one else can figure out how to make your list work. Who went 2 and 3?
I mean, Seer Council's just not very good. What are we doing?
I mean, Boone is convinced it beats Legion of Excess, which I would love to see.
Yeah, I'd be interested in watching that.
We shall see. But yeah, so that is Eldari. Then we've got Gene Stealer Cults. They are 46 players, so 2.7% of the meta, 55.3% win rate, 2 event wins, and 6 top 4s for a 1.98 over rep. So GSC good.
Cults are fine. Stop it, guys. Stop playing them. What are you doing?
I don't think they're that bad.
I don't think they're that bad either. But
so, which detachments is performing the best? Because that's also always a question, I guess, with
Gene Stealer Cults, it tends to be pretty even.
I mean, there are 4 good ones. So
yeah, I mean, you have Biosanctic. Oh god, the one Brood Brother player who decided to do something, but yeah, like you have Biosanctic, Final Day, Host, and Outlander, and there's almost no one playing Outlander right now. Majority of the people are playing Biosanctic or Host, and then there's a few very cool player who are playing Final Day, but they're all sitting in the upper 50s. So like Host is at 63%, but 12 players. Biosanctic's only at 50% with 18 players, so they're technically dragging things down. And then Final Days at 9 players with 56%. So the biggest thing is definitely Host. So Host could probably
had
a
some
love
real
tap.
metagame problems where a lot of the way that you have to build it now, it ends up having to pick between being good at killing elite infantry or good at killing everything else, and then you just kind of like you build your list that's not good at killing elite infantry, and Bile just like vibe checks you completely. It's really awkward. It's a really tough army to build right now. You need some good pairing luck, whereas the other options have got a bit more nuance to them. Yep. I think.
No, that makes sense, and it's also one of these things where like I think 50% is perfectly respectable to be sitting at. So maybe love tap Neos a little bit, and maybe that'll bring Host.
You
kind
leave
of in line.
idea fights alone. Nobody else is using them well except Floof.
Except Floof, yeah. All right, and then the the Dubious Twins are rounding out the top 5. Chaos Knights, 3.2% of the meta, a 53.8% win rate, an event win, and 3 top 4s for a 0.83 over rep. We don't even need to talk about detachments for either of these guys. It's the index detachments that are winning on both sides. I don't even know if someone played the other one. Oh, no. 3 people played Arcanicast Fiefdom for a 40% win rate.
Yeah, Chaos Knights have had some pretty impressive results in teams, kind of like writ large. They're pretty well positioned against what.
I mean, they're just a solid army. They're Eldar do not like playing into that army.
Yeah, Vic got Chaos Knighted pretty hard Manchester round 2.
Yep, I believe it.
And I mean, in the Swedish meta, like both Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights has been really, really strong throughout the 10th edition. And I think that one of the biggest tournaments here in Sweden just happened, I think, last weekend. Jesper did win it, but I think Chaos Knights was like the strong one performing in the top for sure.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. They won a big event down in Australia this weekend as well, I'm pretty sure. With Imperial Knights. Like, yeah, they're a better army than they have any right to be.
Definitely my favorite. So we'll talk about Imperial Knights now. I'm just gonna real quick check, but I know for a fact that no one has played their Grotmust detachment.
Oh,
it's not good.
2 weeks.
No,
It's just bad.
No one.
3.7% of the meta, a 52.7% win rate, 1 event win, and 5 top 4s for a 1.22 over rep. One of the fun things about that is and this is only including this particular meta. So like, I believe it was some of the events in the last couple weeks didn't include the guard codex, so they would have been filed under the other one. But this one that was won was actually won by 14 armigers or 13 armigers plus agents.
Oh, interesting.
You shouldn't get this many knights.
Yeah, the point reductions on Imperial Knight armigers was a mistake.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, the first time that I like looked at the DreamHack list, or not the DreamHack, the 8TC list from last weekend, the one that was like the top scorer, and was like, you get 12 and a big? What is that?
You can do Canis in 11 and have agents.
But like 12.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you can run 14 in agents.
That's crazy, you know? Also, there are like
upsetting.
Yeah, they're worse dogs than like the Chaos Knights get. But that one strat in IK is pretty fucked up.
Mm-hmm. And also just like having Master Crafted on every single model is pretty good.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
You actually have like an army and detachment rule that does something unlike Chaos Knights.
The Chaos Knights rule once in a while does something.
It's really good against Eldar.
That's probably
Eldar start failing Battleshock tests. They don't enjoy it very much.
Yeah, that's true. They do not like that. Oh, what's that? I failed. I'm gonna just roll 6d6 and then goodbye to your aspect host.
Yeah, you definitely lose friends when that ability happens.
Yeah,
Terror Shades is a hell of a stratagem.
It certainly is. All right. Other armies that have won this weekend. Chaos Space Marines over the last 2 weeks have won 3 events and have 11 top 4s for a 1.83 over rep.
What's their win rate though? What's their win rate, Jeremy?
52.6.
Oh my God.
Went up.
Let's see what's hiding in there.
Probably nothing.
I wonder what that is. All right, can whoever it is that's playing Chaos Cult, I'm assuming that it's still Derek. Can they just stop playing because there's one person who averaged 96 points across 5 games in the last 2 weeks? Creations of Bile, 33 players, a 55% win rate. Renegade Raiders, 20 players, a 60.2% win rate.
Oh
wow!
And it's meant to get new Noise Marines, boys.
That is a big number.
Oh, I didn't think about them getting new Noise Marines. That's terrifying.
Yeah, Noise Marines are the only good unit in fucking Emperor's Children. They're about to be even better in CSM.
5 Noise Marines, 6 Noise Marines.
The funny thing is,
5
you have
and a Rhino.
Those 3 that I mentioned that are above 50%, and every other detachment is below 50%.
I believe that wholeheartely. A lot of the CSM stuff is not that great.
Red Talon sucks. Shocked nobody.
You have had so many people playing Soulforge Warpack lately, and I don't understand why.
They really like taking their own
Killing
models off
themselves?
the table. Yeah.
I mean, Soulforge could
number
do a
one
bunch of
American
damage,
detachment,
right?
baby. Hurting yourself in confusion.
Oh, hey. Come on. It's been a tough couple of weeks.
You got a tariff on your damage output, mate.
No.
All right. So the others that have won, Orcs won 1 event, 7 top fours in addition and a 51% win rate for a 0.74 over rep. Nope, flip that. 1.26 over rep, and then Space Wolves won an event. Guard have only won one event in the last 2 weeks and have a 49.7% win rate and 6 top fours for a 0.88 over rep. And this is just Guard Codex, so it's not like Index and Codex kind of blending together.
I don't know if I'm willing to accept that Guards suck, but I do know that Nassim has been talking about Emperor's Children, and that can't be a good thing for Guard, right?
Yeah, see, the problem is that, so if you look at what has been played for Guard, there have been 100 players, so we can do things very nicely in percentages. Anthony dropping out is going to mess with my editing, but I already did that by joining 2 minutes into the call. Only 40 of those players have been playing Bridgehead.
Oh.
And so Bridgehead has a 57% win rate. But then you have people like, I'm going to mute that.
Yep. I wonder if everybody looked at Guard and was like, Bridgehead's surely going to get nerfed, right? And just went, I'm not going to play it.
You got the 20 people who were playing Combined Arms, which is the old Index detachment, for a 36.5% win rate.
Dommy, you hear that? Stop mentioning it in our backstage chat.
I think that it's just a bit of people dodging for a bit. And I think that's fine. That's probably okay.
I don't think it's dodging, because like Hammer of the Emperor is like 25 people played it and they had a 52% win rate. But then you have the brilliant people who are playing Mechanized and Siege and are just tanking. Dude, the Mechanized I can see that
good.
Mechanized is actually quite good, but
Siege is sounds like bad, which is Guard player shit.
Kind of good that Siege is bad, because I don't want to play into an army that could just 5 up and slow my entire army.
I mean, yeah.
That seems miserable.
I think Guard is extremely good. And I mean, it was shown at WTC, and then throughout the whole fall in Sweden, at least, it was like the dominating army. And then some of the best players there, for example, Björn, I think he even thinks it's even better now. So I think that, I don't know. I'm trying to always say Astra Militarium, because I'm trying, to make people less confused.
Call it what you want. we listed in stats under its proper name, but we'll.
Yeah,
it's all good.
If you use its government name, it means you're mad at it, right?
I guess many will be mad at me.
Explain these stats to me.
Yeah, I mean that's what I feel like needs to happen, is that someone needs to go chase down the Guard players and be like, hey, what's happening?
Play the good detachments. Yeah. Stop it.
Imperial Agents, the least played faction, but still somehow managing a 49% win rate and a 2.17 over rep, because they managed a top 4 again.
Yeah.
World Eaters, 48% win rate, but only a single top 4, so they have a 0.23 over rep. Come on, Anthony. Make something happen.
Dude, 0.23 is tragic.
1 out of their 67 players managed to get a top 4. So.
My God.
That's dire.
That is...
World Eaters might get a buff.
Dude, that is 0.2.
All right, people are going to ask about the other ones. So Tyranids won an event, and then Space Marines, Leagues of Votan, Tau, and Blood Angels have all won 2 events in the last 2 weeks. And that kind of wraps things up on the stats front.
Dude, that is genuinely awful. I'm still just taken aback by how bad those World Eater stats are. That is so...
People need leadership.
Yeah, that means that Brian must have been taking a break as well, right? Brian Daughtry. Oh, there, he's literally in chat. Just said, I haven't been playing. Boom, nailed it, called it. Yeah, like, oh boy, that is fucking tragic. All right, well, hopefully we get a new book soon, and that reignites some interest in that. Good lord.
The
codex will be interesting, right?
They could be good again.
What'd you say?
I'm sure 8-bound won't look like Flawless Blades.
I mean, there's the fucking low bar is the flawed blades. Holy shit, that unit sucks.
Toughness 5. I had a Doomsday Arc resolve with them, and I was like, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, unit's bad. That's because they don't let the demon in. That's the difference between letting no demons in.
They're too pure for the demons.
8 demons in.
The 8 demons give you +2 to invulnerable save and +1 to toughness.
That's the same info.
+1 to +2 to feel no pain.
Yeah, you gotta feel no pain. That's the big one.
Yeah,
I shouldn't get into the meta discussion too much, but I mean, would you say that it's more spread now than it's been for quite a long time in 10th? And is that just Glockmaster is doing that? That like people haven't figured out, and maybe adding so many detachments just makes it by nature really hard to balance? Because it sounds like quite many are like in the 60s, so to say, and then you have a couple who are way below the 45, so to speak.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it's
this is
definitely it's definitely a troubling thing because there is such a huge difference in detachment strength. That's not something that we
Mm,
necessarily saw, say, a year ago, but that was also because we had so few codexes back then. Now that we have
yeah.
codexes and regular detachments being released for, like what Eldari now have 9 Marines. If you like look at like one of the non-codex compliant, you have something like
35.
yeah, something wild like that. So like you go through that, and there's definitely a lot more variety available in there, and that definitely is causing some
Yeah,
some
we saw that
balancing pains.
when we did the tier list last week as well, right? Where we had
Yeah.
this insane stratification where we just didn't have a B tier. We had S tier and A tier, and then C and below, and just there was nothing sitting in the middle right now because you're either kind of good enough to consistently win tournaments, or you're an army that only specialists are really doing well on right now. And there
Yeah,
doesn't tend
like
to be
if
a
you
lot
look
of
at the range that Games Workshop in the past has talked about, the 45 to 55 band. Excuse me. We still have 19 to 20 of the 27 factions sitting in there on any given week.
Mm,
So like I will say, with the exception of Sisters, the lows have been less extreme over the last few months than they were in the past, and the highs have also been less excessive than they were, say, closer to Edition launch or the first World WCW.
mm,
yeah.
But that's the like aggregate numbers. When you start poking at detachments, that's where the cracks start to show. Because like Guard, for example, looked
yeah.
balanced, but then you look at Bridgehead, you go,
I mean,
Demons look strong, and then you look at Legion of Excess, and you go, no, there's really a problem there that needs to be addressed. So it's but it definitely does thing. Like I remember, Innes pointed out last week's show where it was very much a like, this is what the meta looks like. It's not like a bell curve like you were expecting. You just have kind of two humps like a camel.
We're living in a camel meta game. That's where we're at right now. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right.
dude.
We'll workshop
So, no, I think that's good.
It's perfect as it is. No need for change.
All right.
Not like
so
the meta.
that is that. Anthony, why don't you tell us a bit about your trip over to Europe?
So I went to Pyra. This is an event that, we kind of do, or that I've done the last 2 years. We kind of use it in Team USA as like a little barometer, a little check-in to see how the new, bright, shiny, recruits that are full of hope and joy will do when I take them into the trenches in the winter in Poland, basically. And we see how it goes. So we do a bunch of work for this event. Normally, this is like a mini WTC for a lot of the new guys. They get to kind of see what the process looks like, right? We usually get like a balance thing sometime in like the December, January region, which normally leads into the event being in the end of February, with list lock being, like a week before the event. So we have like, usually like 6 weeks to kind of like act as like a, hey, this is what, frankly, a slightly easier version of what June and July is going to look like for you if you do make the team. So we kind of tend to hit the ground running real hard once January hits, and once we have all the info that we need for the given meta that we'll be playing in, right? So this year, we took some stuff that was a little bit more experimental, I guess would be the right way to put it. We took a little bit less of a seasoned roster than we did like last year. Some of that is that like our academy this year doesn't have like a bunch of people that had a bunch of WTC experience in it. Some of that is that, we made like a conscious effort to include more new people, right? Some of our like more green people, for some of them, this was like their like third real team event because there's not a ton of them in the States. So they'd done really well at like 1 or 2 and had some singles experience that went well, and then, made their way into the academy. And now it was like, all right, here you go. Here, get to play against, 1 through 7 from the WTC. Good luck. So for, some that was harder, some that was easier, right? For those of us with more experience and time in the hobby and like in the higher levels of competitive, I think it went a little smoother. For some, it was a little harder. So our team, I mean, this has been talked to death across the other two podcasts, but our team, and it's a little outdated now, was, let me pull up exact factions so I don't oops it.
You'll forget one. You always forget one.
I'm not gonna, because I'm gonna do it by looking at the thing. Oh no, I have to sign
Somehow.
into BCP. Scammed. I'm definitely gonna forget one now. That's okay. Oh, I can look at the matrix. That's like cheating with extra steps. Bam. All right, I got it. All right, so we took myself on Creations Bile. We took Brian on Orcs. These are some pretty no-brainer ones, right? These are our veterans of the team. We knew that the two of us should, at least in theory, be fairly like safe, reliable score generation. So we took armies that allow us to do that. Brian took tactical orcs, which gave him a nice even matchup spread as opposed to the slightly spikier spread of Warhordes matchups. He tried to, eliminate as much like skew from his thing as possible. I am the opposite side of the spectrum where like mine is the same melee rush skew that I always play, but knowing, kind of trusting in myself that in matchups where it wasn't going great, I'd be able to pull it back and keep it kind of close because have shown an affinity for doing that in the past. In matchups that are good, I go and smash face, and that's kind of the game plan with that. From there, we had Kit Smith Hanna playing Marines. He played John's Stormlines Ultras that John just like won Warzone Atlanta with. We broadly had a lot of faith in this list. It mostly held up to it. It did really well in most of the rounds. Scary list, moves fast, hits hard, did well. Next up, we had Tyler Bortel on AdMech. This list had done really, really well in testing. You can listen to Tyler talk about kind of his like testing to real life experiences kind of as he flowed through. This event, I don't think the scores that Tyler ended up with at the end of this really reflected quite like how well he kind of handled the event in general. Tyler did a lot of like taking on feedback and like learning from this event that isn't necessarily reflected in like the fact that his scores were not like great through the event, but he learned like a bunch of those like lessons were taken that were very transferable. And I think in general, AdMech is still really good in a team environment. The things it's capable of doing once you adjust for, not being playing the list in real life for the first time with like someone else's models that are not like weighed down properly, so you're constantly getting stuck trying to use Taraxi in real life, which is awful. Once you account for kind of some of that, I think you can kind of calibrate and kind of see that, there's a lot of like capability in this army basically that didn't necessarily get a fair shake. Next up was Nick Fromm playing Aspect Host Eldar. I think, kind of in a lot of a similar vein as like a lot of other teams particularly after this event, it seems like Ynnari is just stronger. But our early testing, this event was done with Eldar publicly available 2 weeks before it. So we kind of just like stuck to the first thing that seemed like it was pretty good and kind of drilled that. We initially were going to try and do what I guess you would call like the Polish maneuver, which is you take Harlequins and use them to hunt the other elves. But we were having a really hard time getting Harlequins to not just like blow up and die when they played other things that weren't other elves. So we gave up on that and went to Aspect Host. Aspect Host seemed like it was going to be pretty straightforward as far as like execution
You didn't
goes.
spot the obvious Harlequin angle of just put 30 swooping hawks in it, apparently.
I mean, apparently that, is all the difference. But yeah, we did not consider that, no. So we kind of went to Aspect Host, which seemed like it was going to be a little bit more, straight line and how to use it and stuff like that. Next was Ben Jurek on Bridgehead Guard. He'd been playing Guard a bunch. We kept him on Guard. Pretty straightforward stuff here. We had Sam Pope on Tyranids, and this was a bit of a more interesting flex point for our comp. So going into the event, something that we kind of tried to explain to our guys is that we don't care if you play a list that doesn't often or really ever score more than a 14 if it also doesn't ever get less than an 8, because just having something that just sticks like glue is just this awful wet towel that every time the opponent puts up a defender and is we're gonna get a big score on a light board, you can be nope, or they go to attack something and you're just nah. The ability to just tell people no and that they're actually not going to get the score they think they are is pretty tight. We try and based on all the teams that we've done together in us with the polls and all of our other times in the past, we normally have 1 to 2 of these in the pocket. For this event, we did not, and you will see that cause problems later. So we did end up switching Sam to Vanguard. He had a lot of really positive results with it in practice. It ended up being great at hunting. This basically did the inverse of what my list did. So Sam was really good at hunting the top of the meta, the guards, he could draw Marines. He was great against a lot of the elves that, weren't Inari. And even there, he still had game. Like, a lot of that stuff he was really good into. And then, like, we got to the event, and people had just jammed the back three of their roster with stuff that he was not very good into. So we had to be a little bit more delicate with him in pairings than we thought we were going to. Whereas, like, to fully explain the point, my list was really good into, like, if you weren't Eldar, Marines, or Bridgehead, you're probably going to have a bit of a tough day into Bile. That was the idea anyway. So being good against 5 of the armies on most rosters, good enough. And then we rounded out our comp with Ruben Zhao playing Warping Grey Knights. This list was really good. I still think it's really good. It seems great for teams. I'm confused as to how the win rate is not higher in singles. You kind of just teleport around doing fucked up shit with 10-2-3 ignore cover, and that, is pretty solid as it turns out. And then it has a whole bunch of indirect backing that up. Minor shout out to Ruben. I gave him a bunch of shit when the detachment first came out and he was like, I don't think you need to run purifiers. I think you could just table people without them and the aura is not that important. I was like, Ruben, you're not going to run purifiers in the purifiers detachment? And you're going to take these purgators that like barely do anything if you have like a decent armor save? And he was 1,000% right and I was wrong. So I've told him this before, but I'll give him a little shout out because I know he watches occasionally. But yeah, as it turns out, you don't need purifiers in the purifier detachment. You just need to kill enough of the bad guys that you control the objectives, and then you get full rerolls anyway. As it turns out, this detachment is really good at killing the bad guys.
Plus big areas with full rerolls and indirect is just to deal with.
Ruben just got like straight up alpha struck, like just on the chin took it by the German Windrider list, which normally that seems like it's going to be bad for you, and then just shot them back and just erased them from existence. Just everybody died. So yeah, he was right. I was wrong. Good job, Ruben. But yeah, so that was our team. As a like general learning, I think from the event that we could probably take from this, is that our comp didn't really have any like blunters in the way that we thought we were going to. A lot of our pairing cycles kind of looked like us being, and this is not, this is normally a thing that Team USA does and executes quite well, right? Like in the year of 10th release, like we hit the pins on GSC and they didn't score any points against us really all event. We leaned into that a little too much, I think. So we just didn't have any like solid, consistent things, and if our pins got fucked up or like a pairing thing happened, it ended up being really, really challenging. So yeah, that's a thing we kind of like a big learning we took from the event, right? Is you probably want a couple of things that are a little bit more stable, even if they like aren't super flashy or exciting.
It's tough to do that in like when you're testing new people experience as well, right? Because you don't want to be like, you're the guy who's here to go and show that you deserve to go Team America. Go play garbage to go play Glue 7's army.
Yeah, go get 5 10s. Go get them. But yeah, I mean, like, we probably could have been a little bit more cognizant of that, like broader experience, right? And like minor inconveniences going into the event, right? I got sick before the event and then again at the event, or I just like got the turbo flu before I went and it just persisted through me coming back. So I was not in an optimal position to be doing leadership stuff. So thankfully, through the power of friendship and capitalism, I was able to recruit the Polish boy wonders, Typhus and Pumbaa, to come along to kind of take on most of that responsibility. I will say that this gave me an entirely new outlook on and level of respect for the people at WTC that are doing pairings, captaincy, and playing. I don't know how the fuck anyone does that and isn't just a giant asshole to everyone around them the entire time.
The trick is to be a giant asshole to everyone around you all the time. That was my approach.
That is the only way I could see managing this, because I like was sick and had half the abilities offloaded, and I was still just like not getting any sleep, grumpy, having to focus on what I was doing. Crazy difficult. Don't know how people do that. excellent kudos to anyone that's
Mostly
ever had
that
to
it
do
just
that.
takes like 6 weeks off your life every day that you're at the event. That was
Yeah,
basically what.
I wouldn't even be surprised if it was 6 months off your life at the event for every day at the event, because like it is genuinely insane. Yeah, wild, absolutely crazy. Anyway, so yeah, broad strokes as far as the event goes. Obviously, we didn't want to get smashed twice. We did pretty good in our pod. It opened pretty good. We had a really good round against England. Tore them apart pretty nice, you know. They were lovely to play against. I will say I'll lead with that. They have shed their anyone but England tag. They were lovely, lovely folks. All 8 games. Lovely guys. Good job, England. Making improvements in the right direction. Then in round 2, we played Poland B. Looking great, you know. Cruising. Things are going good. Straight into the world champs, who had significantly more of their former starters than I thought they did. Going into the event, I was like, oh, only like 4 or 5 of these guys were like, you know, starters. So like they're testing some new people. As it turns out, their Eldar player, who I recognized immediately when we got to the event, was like their old captain. And then like their Death Guard player is like apparently like the guy that, you know, the shit that killed Elvis in France these days. I was talking to Hugo about him a little bit, and he was like, oh yeah, he might be the best player in the country. And I was like, okay. And he was like, yeah, by the way, normally he plays T-Suns, not Death Guard. And I was like, no. So I had that experience. But yeah, so the French were really good. They put it on us pretty handily. I think they got like a 90 some odd. It was pretty rough round, but that's okay. That happens sometimes, you know. Powerful team, played really well, executed really well. Same thing, lovely to play against. I got some time to actually chat with the Death Guard guy after the game, after like the other games were done, and he was like, do you think Bile beats Death Guard? And I was like, yes, very much so. And then he was like, what? How? And we talked about it for like literally 2 seconds, and I reminded him what the Nemesis Claw do, and he was like, never mind, I don't want any part of that matchup. And it was very funny. So he was like, yeah, but I'm -1 damage. And I was like, unless you're not. And then he was like, oh no. Yeah, it was pretty funny. We had a good laugh about it. So yeah, that was the French round. I got to play against Slanesh Demons. That was pretty tight. It was interesting. So let's just like get this out of the way, because in the following round I do not defeat the Slanesh Demons. In round 1 against this lovely Frenchman that I played, I tripped over every single Slaneshi rake, just all of them. Just shot a thing that didn't need to shoot, got battle shocked, lost secure, didn't kill the thing I was shooting at, gave him a 15, just woo, all the things wrong. And like as I was doing them, I was like, oh, I don't think this is right. And every single time it was just like maximal punish. Right up until at the end of the first battle round, I charged his chariot, and he heroiced in a keeper. And I was like, are you sure? Because like 8 of these possessed can hit your keeper, and I have 2 command points. And he was like, yeah, and charged in anyway. And I was like, all right. Now, the story ends with an alive keeper and 8 dead possessed. But I thought it was not going to go that way. But more importantly, it meant that keeper was basically out of the game, and I could focus in other places. And it ended up being that a round later, I got a call to push, which turned into this lovely Slaneshman that I played, scoring a total of 11 points for the rest of the game. Because I was like, all right, if you insist, off we go. So you can just kill them, but you really gotta not do what I did, which is on purpose step face first into all the rakes, just right off the rip. And honestly, that mostly, like the stepping on all the rakes came out of me trying to be, this always happens to me. Like this is a classic Anthony story where I'm like, oh, I won't go. I'll be a little more conservative, and I'll try and hit the edges, and I'll skirt around, and I'll, you know, do stuff and set up and not just hit the things in front of me and move on. And every time I've basically ever done that in a game of Warhammer, I've been immediately and aggressively punished for doing so. So I'm never doing that again. Yeah, so that one went okay. Now, in the following round, we get a night's sleep. You know, bit of a beater loss to the French, but we get a night's sleep, right? Next round, we'll play the Germans. We talked to them a fair amount. We've scrimmed with them a bit. We're pretty tight with them. New German team's super cool. They're easy to get along with. So, you know, we're doing pairings, and whoop, 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 fucking Slanesh round 2. All right, fine. I got it the first time, got a 17. Should be okay this time, right? Wrong. Hidden supplies means that when I gave my French compatriot 5s and 0s, this gentleman was scoring 10s and 15s, combined with him having 3 keepers instead of 2. As it turns out, the part of Slanesh that I had meant to be shit-talking the whole time was the Fiends. The Keepers, however, are apparently a little bit better. So,
Yeah, Fiends just die to you.
yeah, Fiends die super fast. It's great. You can turn off their ability to use strats. They can't do anything. You just kill them. It's awesome.
And the Keeper kind of looks at you and goes, oh, that's cute.
Well, you can kill a Keeper, but something I didn't account for was in the first game that I played against them, I hit weapon skill, and I was just like, oh, weapon skill, weapon skill's pretty good, and I didn't like think about it too much past that and just kind of moved on. So I was hitting on 3s like normal, and everything just felt kind of fine. But in the second game, your boy hit strength, which is good, but I hit that in the first game too, and toughness doesn't do shit. However, not having weapon skill meant that my no reroll to hit army was now hitting on 4s, which, sometimes is fine, but sometimes is a lot less fine. So we did a lot of not hitting. Now, all that said, the person that I played in the German round, very rarely in my life do I meet another pilot and I play against them and I'm like, wow, this person is just as good at combat as I am. However, this German man named Niklas is just as good at combat as I am. And that is exceedingly rare, but he was, and that made this way harder. So we both made some minor micro mistakes, but in general, it was definitely just playing someone at the level, and that meant some challenges ensued. The minor mistakes that I had made really cascaded. I reserved a unit of possessed. Definitely shouldn't have done that. It was corners. I asked way too much of this 110 man for heroic protection. Didn't work at all the way that I wanted it to. So in the future, maybe don't reserve your possessed units in corners against 3 keepers when they don't put anything in reserve. Not that you know that when you're calling your reserves, but you can make a pretty educated guess. There was a point in the game where I was going back and forth on same kind of thing from the first game where I was like, should I go? Should I not go? And then I was like, what do you have in reserve? And he was like, oh, 10 demonettes. And I was like, so you mean to tell me, Nicholas, if I don't go, that you're just going to rapid ingress 10 demonettes and you're going to wrap this rhino? And he was like, Anthony, we're friends. I would never do that. And I was like, all right, got it. So I immediately disembarked out all my rhinos and sent it at him because the alternative was not good. So yeah, it mostly worked out. Just the downside of some things, a couple minor mistakes, hidden supplies, and that shit turns into a 9. So that's how it goes. The rest of the round, we got battered. We hit the unfortunate side of some flips. There was some matrix data that didn't go so hot, so I think Germany put a 102 or a 108 or something like that on us. Rough round. Uncommon for us in the old US of A to take a beating like that, but that's how it goes sometimes. Not the end of the world. And then in the last round, we got to play our lovely friends on Team Sweden. Now, I was super excited about this round because I finally got to play Andreas Holm. I love this guy. He's hilarious. In every Discord that I'm in, that we spent all of WTC prepping together last year, even though he didn't get to go. Absolutely hilarious. I agreed with most things he said. The banter with him was always great, and I finally got to play him, and that was awesome. As it turns out, for whatever reason, both of us just miserably bad at counting. Always not in our favor. Somewhat regularly, Holm would roll boxcars on flamer shots and then pick up 5 dice. And I'd be like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, oh, that was a 6 and a 5. My bad. You can pick up 6 dice. We were like, it was big game, last game of the event shit where the two of us were just so brain fried that we were just struggling through it together. It was very funny. But yeah. I had played a practice game against something really similar to what he was playing, and that helped a bunch. I learned that if you send it piecemeal into Death Guard, you get anti-infantry 2-up flamered just into the floor. So that's not going to work. So what you got to do is make them deal with it all at once while you tag stuff and make it awkward, right? The bile -1 to hit for the stuff that isn't in the, Morty aura, pretty good. The War Dogs in that matchup, really good. Death Guard are really good at putting 4 OC on a point. They're not great at contesting a single thing that puts 8 on a point unless some las cannons pop up.
And all of these lists right now are playing at most 2 Playburst crawlers, right? Or 2 Predators and Playburst crawlers with flamers right now.
Yeah, I mean his list was
ones, right? Yeah.
almost entirely flamers, and then like the indirect, and he had 2 predators, right? Or maybe it was 3. I think it was 2. Because he had Mortarion and he had 2 like lead Death Shroud units, right? So he didn't really have a ton of like, he had to get down and then go kill me, and that took a while because I was busy jailing him. So pulled out a 15 there, which was good. We had some like unfortunate like flip stuff happen in this round too, but we actually ended up on a perfect 80-80 draw into the Swedes. So that we ended the event on what I would consider a high note. I think that people sleep on the value of draws in teams. I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot of people that are like, winner, it doesn't count, or send it for the victory. I don't care about a draw, and like everyone's really gung ho
Draw
to
is
say
perfectly
that.
respectable.
It's still
think-
points, right?
I think everyone's really gung ho to say that right up until you get to the end of the event, and like not that this has happened to me recently or anything. You get 5th instead of like 2nd because you got a loss instead of a draw. And that shit hurts. It hurts real bad not being on the podium when you were,
Could've been.
hoping
you
to be.
break yourself out of it.
Yeah,
no
when you were
comment
just,
about
like-
getting 3 draws at WTC multiple years. So
Yeah, like
To be fair, I'll still. I remember just like the room hearing around. Poland were like, we're not drawing Canada. Everybody push.
Yeah, look,
last
I get
year.
it. That was baller, and it worked, so they get to look like heroes, right? But if they didn't, you still have to have that ride home where you're like, oh, we're 6th, not on the podium now.
Yeah, we still
Oops.
got points. It's fine.
Yeah. So I have weirdly, I have like, this is one of the areas that I'm like conservative with in teams, right? The person I was just talking about, like, just send it. Stop, trying to play the edges, because like, I think that it's easy to just be like only looking at the upside, right? It's the 4-up save that you want to CP reroll, right? You're like, you only ever think about what happens when you pass it. You're like, oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to pass the save and then I'm going to be a hero. But you exclude from your mind that half the time you spend a CP to die anyway, right? And I think that a lot of that, I think that happens in teams a lot too, where people are just like, oh, we'll just all push and then it'll be fine and then we'll win the round. It's like, well, maybe, or maybe we just like have people get 12s and we draw and it's,
that's fine.
also fine.
Would you say that maybe in a team environment a draw is more okay, but in singles, like a draw is almost seen as a loss? And of course, it also depends a bit on many rounds you play, because
Right, yeah. In singles, like a draw ends your run, right?
yeah, exactly.
But in teams, most of the time, a draw is just like, all right, you get 2 of those, You can mulligan twice in teams, and it's usually fine.
I don't think it's even that bad in singles.
It depends on
Depends
the
on the format, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's one of these things where like if you finish 5-0 and 1 at the event and you finish 2nd because you got a draw, I think that's perfectly acceptable. That's better than going 5-1 and finishing 10th.
Yeah, for sure. You're never going to be unhappy to draw a game you were going to lose, but you're always unhappy to draw a game you were going to win, right? Or you felt like you should have won. That's always the.
If you feel like you should have won a round and you draw it, it hurts. If you feel like you were fighting constantly and you got that draw when it probably could have been a loss, that feels really good.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything else aside, generally went well. I feel like we got a lot of good information about everybody, that attended the event. Like to the, for the Academy boys, it was possible to like make a good impression of this event even without having great scores. But yeah, in general, like a lot of people did really well. That's kind of it. That's the purpose of the event. It is extremely challenging on purpose for.
So we actually only wanted to know how your game into Legion of Excess went, Anthony. I don't know why you went on this tangent.
I mean, that's fine. I do genuinely think Legion of Excess is still a fairly straightforward and easy matchup if you are a melee-based army. Nicholas and I talked about it after. He thinks the World Leader matchup is so cursed he would not have on any planet taken me if I was playing World Leaders. So, which I can get behind because I don't, like, you stand the MOE next to Angron, and then, like, the Slanesh army just is like, well, all right, fuck you, I guess. We'll go somewhere else, I suppose. I don't know. So
all right, let's give Christian something to talk about. Jeremy, you mentioned you had some questions for him.
Yeah, I've actually got to take off in a couple of minutes. I wasn't sure I was going to make this full cast, but I am curious, Christian. Sweden seems to me like a fairly large country. How spread out is the population actually, and like the player base?
Good question. I mean, Sweden is a gigantic country, not like Canada or USA, but I mean, it's very Canada-ish, I would say.
Yeah, like
Sweden
your population tends to be fairly focused along the coast, or?
Yeah, so the opposite is south side. I don't know exactly by numbers, but most people maybe live within 5 to 6 hours drive, and kind of where we're gonna have the Veizla Mega in Jönköping. I don't know if it's 3 to 5 hours. You hit probably 90% of the population in Sweden. But then, of course, for example, here I think it's in 2 weeks we have the longest running Warhammer 40k tournament in
GothCon.
Fantasia up in Umeå. I
Oh,
think
no.
they've been running for 25 years plus or something like
Oh,
that.
wow.
And that for sure is a tournament where people from southern Sweden is going up to, because it's just such a legendary great tournament. But yeah, we for sure have the challenges of not be able to fly like you do in the US. Instead, you go by the car or by train. So that is a disadvantage compared to maybe some other countries. If you say like the Netherlands, like you can get everywhere within an hour or so.
Yeah. Okay, that actually sounds fairly similar to Canada in that sense. Like I think it's something like 70% of our population lives in the Quebec-Windsor corridor, which if you kind of choose a point roughly in the middle of it, it's about a 5-hour drive in every direction. But then you have like big population centers that are also further out east and further out west, like in the prairies, where where the big GW event is going to be in Edmonton. That's 24-hour drive away from me, I think. So like it's only really accessible by flights. So I was always curious, because I was curious about that from the perspective of like, since like Swedes are used to driving those kind of distances, like 5-6 hours for tournaments and for other gatherings.
I would say, I think like a 1 to 3 hour, and it's more common. But yes, I think that the reality is, like the big cities in Sweden outside of the three big ones is like 100K, people. So really small, for Anthony, it's like, what do you mean? That's just like my neighborhood, basically. But so people are used to traveling when you are from a smaller city, and we have many small cities, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah, because I was basically wondering about like what kind of challenges you found, because you've really brought a good chunk of the Swedish player base together, and you'd find a lot of them, bringing them to talk to each other more and can interact with each other more. If you found any challenges with like regional disparities.
I think that maybe I'm just so used to it being a Sweden or so, but I would say that what's interesting though, and it's hard for me to really talk about all the history, but 40K has been going up and going down, and for sure for the last couple of years, I don't think only for the pandemic, I think it was a movement even before the pandemic, but also with 40K doing so much better as a game right now, I think as we see here that a lot of people that I'm talking to like came back to the hobby the last 1.5 years or so. And what we can see is that in Stockholm, where I live, the capital, which has like 1 million people or so, actually is lacking a lot of gaming clubs and tournaments, etc. We have some really great ones with Alpha Spel, the big retailer here in the Nordics, and SSG, for example, who is just hosting tournaments 100 meters from me. But
Nice.
otherwise, in Stockholm is pretty weak, and actually Gothenburg has been a bit weak too. That used to be the 40K hub. So it's more other cities than the two big ones that actually been driving it. So that's like Västerås, it's Malmö, it's Umeå, as I mentioned. Also the Lund one has been growing. That's a big one here in Sweden back in the days in 40K. So I think it's just that type of nature that where we see that we have some strongholds. So this tournament in the north, Umeå, that I talked about, that's almost all 40K people in Sweden seems to have been there studying in one shape or form or lived there once in their life, because everyone seems to play 40K if they live in Umeå.
Interesting. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. Like here, Ottawa's about the same size as Stockholm, and we do have a very vibrant scene. But if you go to Toronto, that was one of the things which is the the largest city in the country. They have long struggled with that, and they often found that one of the biggest challenges that they would run into was venue space, because
It's
space
so
was always at a
expensive.
premium, and so especially in the really big city, finding a good venue to host something like this would always be cost prohibitive. So I
Yeah.
imagine that that's something similar for Stockholm in that sense, and that's why you may have a little bit more success in the smaller. I say smaller, but like in your other big cities where space may not be as much of a premium.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that we in Stockholm probably could have 100 tables in Stockholm only that would be busy most of the weekdays. But reality is that we don't have that many, but it's popping up. So like there is a great movement happening, but you need to find the right way of financing it.
Yeah, then that's definitely a big challenge because it's something that often comes up from an event running perspective. 40K is one of the least efficient games you could try to run from a square foot to player perspective. When you look at it, and you can say, well, I can put 6 Magic players in the same spot that I can put 2 40K players, sometimes more, or I could put 4 kill team players in the same place that I have two 40K players. What are we doing? So it's always difficult, but like the hobby has grown a lot, the interest in it has grown a lot, and so the support for it is also starting to grow. It's just sometimes difficult figuring out the economical side of that when you're in a more spread out population. Like it's something that Thomas Verkoyen is mocking us right now because it takes him 2.5 hours to cross his country, but 2.5 hours gets me to Montreal, which is the next major city. Anything further than that, go to a team event in Toronto next month with Innes and a few other friends, and that's a 4.5, 5 hour drive.
Oh, is it? Sorry for you, buddy.
Oh, I don't mind. I'm doing it to see you guys.
Next month already.
I run events
It's
in
in, like,
Montreal, so
4
I've been
weeks,
there,
dude.
but not in Toronto actually.
Hey, they're looking for mercs.
Yeah, do it.
They have a Merc team that I put together that I'm looking for 2 more players for. So if you are interested in playing Toronto teams,
Yeah, that goes
get
out to
my
anybody
DM.
who's listening as well. If you're in Toronto and you're interested or nearby, reach out. Jeremy needs people.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna skip the plugs this week. It's a day next week. It's fine. The things are in the description. Shall we get on to questions and let Jeremy get away?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
seems wise.
I've actually got a bail right now, so I'm going to take off before you
That's
guys
what I
start
meant.
questions. And Kristen, thanks a lot for joining, and thanks a lot for the insight into the Swedish scene.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Have a good
Have a
one.
good night.
All right. Let's kick off with some questions. So the other week, Anthony mentioned DA dashboard metrics looked like faction abandonment. What do you think the actual power level of that army is?
I think DA are like fucking high A tier. Like they're so fucking good, dude. They don't need like the plus 1 to wound just at all. Like their sheets are just nuts. I think that army is like wildly slept on, and I think it'll be the immediate pivot if ultras and stuff like that ever get reined in.
Look, I'm not saying that I still have 15 Deathknights just ready to go, but I definitely don't not have 15
Dude,
Deathknights
I
ready
do
to go.
not see nearly enough people talking about Samael. Holy
Dude, he hits so hard.
moly, dude. The change to him with Outriders, wild. Just absolutely insane.
Always on advance and charge, +1 damage on the charge, strength 7, such a nice break point.
Yeah, with
He
Lance
just-
access. Oh,
Yeah, dude,
damage
he slams.
3.
He's great.
Even I have some
Absolutely
Deathwing Knights that are supposed to be built and painted.
Yeah, like
They going in a Blood Angel scheme, Christian, or
I haven't decided by a good one though. No, probably something else, maybe.
I always do all my stuff in a generic Marine set so that I can play everything as everything. My Blood Angels Deathwing Knights will be popping out if it's good.
Yeah, that army's nuts. I think it's gonna be I think, like I said, I think it's gonna come back real fast once there's an option to.
For sure. Right. Goran asks, data slate confirmed for us. I don't know if it's confirmed yet, but expected for Wednesday, I think. Wishes, hopes, complaints, and other things. All right. What's one thing you want to see buffed, one thing you want to see nerfed? Go for it.
Who's first?
Whoever wants to take the first one.
Christian, lead it.
I get into really thin ice right now, but I do think that maybe Tau players in general should get a bit buffed. I think that that's an army that many likes, and they haven't really had any high points.
Yeah.
I don't know about the nerves. I hope they maybe can do something on the game in general, but I guess this patch would be more points primarily. Or what do you think it can even consist
They
of?
said on the last one that they were open to doing points and rules changes on every balance data slate now, so I imagine that we'll see updates to everything.
Yeah, then of course I'm picking up the Necrons, but I'm pretty hyped where Star Shatter is and playing the Silent King, but maybe it's a bit weaker than I had hoped for. It looked extremely promising after the Christmas, but yeah, maybe it would be that then.
I mean, it did well at Pyra.
Selfish asking for selfish buffs is totally fine on this show. We encourage it, in fact.
I'll do it somewhat frequently, even.
Anthony, how about yourself?
What would I like to see changed? I mean, like, you know, in the selfish bucket of stuff that's never going to happen, I would like to see a possessed redesign. Just because, like, I think 24
There's a
points
question that we'll talk about possessed later on, so you can do a different one here.
Sure.
I can save that one for you.
I would like elves. I would like Yanari to just not like. I
Just Legends, Yvrain, and Yinkarn.
no, it doesn't have to get that type of crazy. Just like make Lethal Intent like a D6 move, and then like make Fire Dragons only reroll damage or something. Like just stop.
Less.
Just less. It's too much of the everything.
The Dark Reapers will need to get a point of 2 points of strength and a point of damage.
Yeah, and go up nothing for it. Whatever. I'm not gonna think too much about Dark Reapers. I'm gonna get really mad. I think Eldar you could probably rein a bunch in with just like a bit of points and changing the fucked up stuff in Yanari. I think that you would have to probably
I'm
do
mad
something.
about it in the chat. So
What'd you say?
Someone's just said make Big Knights usable again, and I'm mad about that because they've won Super Majors this patch. Chill out. You're just not as good as Ryan Jones.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think that as far as stuff that could use buffs, I think Blood Angels, honestly, like the Blood Angel specific stuff.
Yeah.
Come on, Dante damage 3, please.
That would be hot. Yeah, that would be sick.
Just all I want. I'll take a 20-point increase to have it. Just
I would take way more than that. You can make Dante 160 points if he was damage 3, and I would still use him. I mean, just I don't know what to do for them. Honestly, I played against some Bloodless Angels action at Pyra and was soundly not impressed.
You played Blue with the like no characters version.
Yeah.
Wasn't that impressed with his list. Personally.
I just like in general, like I get what it's trying to do. It's MSU. It's really good at going wide, and then like Oath makes it really good at hitting things that are tall. I get it, but also
having lost to it in the semifinals of Super Major and played it to 2 of them, it's pretty good. I'm a big fan of Bloodless Angels. I don't think it really needs changes. But
that's still not what I'm talking about.
Rage Shield Warrior could go up a nerf. I wouldn't actually mind that.
I think Blood Angels writ large could afford to be better. I don't know how you really do it, but
Sanguinary Guard, let's do it there.
Sure, wherever you want, but just not. Like do it obviously in the Blood Angel specific data sheets. But I think Bloodless is probably not long for this world if the developers have any ability to read. I can't imagine that was intended. So,
personally, I would like to see Gulliman taken out back and shot. Just somehow. I don't really care how you do it. Just
sorry.
Why does he get 2 or go for it?
I forgot something. Make Calgar's extra CP require him to be the warlord.
Feels like a lot of steps.
Nope. I think it helps a ton. I think it fixes a huge portion of the ultimate problems.
Can't have him and Gulliman unless you give up the extra CP. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think that like in terms of a game-wide change, I would like to see the character, like unit characters like Celestine and Gulliman or Calgar, not be able to take their feel no pain unless they're getting precisioned. Just like you can't allocate wounds to Calgar till he's the last dude. It's so weird that happens.
It is. It is pretty funny when it happens. It's not good. I don't think.
Yeah. I think for me, Gulliman probably needs to go back down to 1 aura. I don't get why he has 2, just at all. That's the only change. The biggest change I want is that, but obviously points on him would help as well. And then what do I want buffed? I would like a buff to the Norn as always. I always want the Norn to get buffed. Give me my Norn toughness 12. What are we doing? Why can't it be durable?
I mean,
why can a Vindicator one-shot it?
I think the Norn could be +1 toughness and +3 strength on its melee attacks in both variants, and you'd be like, all right. Like no one would be like, whoa.
You'd be like, man, I might run 1 in Nexus to Ingress.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want. Also, confirm what base Fulgrim's on Games Workshop, you cowards.
Yeah. I also, this is just like a broader like slate note. This is gonna sound like I'm gonna get gone at for this one. Don't just kill Legion of Excess. Like there's like I feel like that army is like a fucking house of cards, and you could just like flick out 2 of them and just be cool afterwards, you know?
if they Emperor's Children, the Shalaxian Keeper data sheet, it's gonna be rough.
I mean, that alone would be
yeah, it's gonna be rough.
catastrophic.
It's gonna be rough. If the
Yeah.
Keeper just loses its 5 up Feel No Pain, I'm like not worried about that army and like getting scam sense anymore. Like you still have to respect it if that was the only change, but at least it doesn't scam you to shit anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that like maybe like change the Battle Shock strat and
Thieves,
change
maybe.
Thieves.
Yeah.
And then like be cool after that. It doesn't have to get wild, particularly if they're gonna update the data sheets. Like just be cool, you know?
Yep. Fair enough. Right.
What I think is gonna happen instead is the army's gonna get shot like in both eyeballs, and then
Yeah,
we're not
totally
gonna see them
is,
ever
100%.
again. But
All right. What makes a faction more or less prone to faction abandonment?
do any of the very talented content creators, now that's one category, not very talented content creators, implying that all content creators are very talented. Do any of the content creators who are very talented have a particular affinity for a faction? If yes, less likely to get abandoned.
Or
If
is it exactly Marines, Eldar, Tyranids, and Chaos Space Marines? Who
right,
just...
those are normally pretty sturdy. Basically any other thing, good luck. Godspeed.
Right. Who has the best haircut in 40k? Ask Preston. Player and or model. Model's got to be Cave on Shrike.
Oh, Quentin. What are we doing? What are we even talking about right now?
Who's the best hair in Sweden, Christian? Why is it Elias?
I do think who Anthony mentioned, Andreas Holm. He has a
Yes.
good hair, I would say,
Yes.
ginger and all. So maybe he's leading the pack.
Yes.
I'm for sure not the one. So
Anthony also isn't with his friar tuck, dude.
All right, listen. I need a haircut. It's been a couple weeks. It looks better after I get one.
Me too, buddy. Okay. How do you want Games Workshop to fix Ynnari? How do you think you actually fix Ynnari? Asks Ian Horace McHorace face.
Hilarious. I think most of the issue is tied up in lethal intent, right? Unless you've played it more than me, I've just been like present while
Lethal intent is bullshit. It probably needs to get capped at like it either needs to be 2 of 3 of like capped at 7, changed to D6+1, infantry only, immediately after a unit dies, not at the end of the fight phase, or locked to being when a unit dies near it during this phase.
Yeah,
like, there
that
needs to
would
be
probably
like
help.
some form of like 2 of those restrictions in some capacity. I think like capping it at 7 and making it immediate, or making it infantry only but needing something to die nearby, or like infantry and mounted or whatever, but like just like some form of restrictions on it.
What Andy just said would also work once per battle. That would also I mean, like, maybe that's too much. I don't know. That like reads to me as actually like pretty reasonable.
I mean, make it use a battle focus token as well, maybe. Like,
dude, the first time I read Ynnari, I thought all 3 of those things required a battle focus token, and I was just like, oh, okay, and I moved on.
yeah, I think like make it use a battle focus token on top of like 2 of the minor ones from there. I think something like that. What I think will actually happen is that it will either not change or it will get absolutely murdered. And I'm probably okay with either of those ultimately.
Yeah, I think there's just like I think it's probably just a bit much. That's all.
Anthony, what are you? Goran asked what you're hoping for with the World Eaters Codex.
The World Eaters Codex. My
Playable melee.
great hope is that we don't have to fucking play with Angron anymore. I loved the 9th edition version of Eaters. I preferred that version pretty heavily to what we have now, which is like this like whirlwind of casino nonsense that feels bad for both players at the table, and I don't like think that's broadly something that should be pursued. I think the old setup where like like Tithe was obviously, in my opinion, a much better mechanic than Blessing Dice. But just in general, the fact that we're like fully reliant on Angron is like not good. So I would like to get out of that space if we can.
Once per game he can come back, but just price it in.
Not even that, but like, sure, I just maybe no res at all. I don't know, just something the fuck else. Like, I just don't want to be reliant on him anymore. I'd like to have some like other characters that we can use or other units that are worth using kind of in that space.
Yeah,
it used to be that like Berserkers were legitimately good units and you would take them to crush other
be a melee
units.
unit.
Yeah, to be a melee unit, right? Like 5
as opposed to
berserkers
10
will-
OC that holds a master executioner's fight first.
Right. Yeah, that
mean,
shit is lame.
hard for me to maybe comment, but there is something that I feel that the Games Workshop haven't fully figured out with how they want chaos in general to be. So
Yeah.
it feels like they start in one end in 10th edition. I think it was Chaos Space Marines that was like the first codex, right?
Yep.
And then they've been like waiting. And for me, it's like, let's say World Eaters, either it have its own codex and then it feels very limiting,
Right.
or they should do something else where they can go in between each other somehow, or something. At
Yeah.
the same time, maybe that's also bad. I don't know, but it's something that I think still they can improve
I
around the
think
chaos
they're-
in general.
Their last couple like attempts at CSM have been very good. Like the CSM Codex is both very powerful and very flavorful and has multiple good detachments. Like they've done a good job with that. They did a good job with it in 9th. Release Eaters in 9th also they did a good job with. It's just like this 10th version has become very like weird, for lack of a better term. It's just like a pile, like there's a bunch of mechanics in Eaters that feels bad, right? Like surge, fight first, together, you know, the fallback lock, the anger on res. Like there's a bunch of shit in there that's like, all right, I guess.
It almost
when-
reads like a book that was never intended to be good when they wrote it, that just like
Right.
accidentally was by sheer force of will.
I mean, you know, far be it from me to use sheer force of will to push through some new ideas, but yeah.
No, you would never.
Yeah, like I think that like a move back towards being able to be an army that is kind of overwhelming when it hits you all at once.
I think it's weird that World Eaters are as fast as they are in a general sense.
Oh,
well.
no.
Like it feels like World Eaters should be overwhelmingly like brutal, but not specifically fast.
No, I mean fast is actually a huge part of like what the nails give them. We're gonna get real nerdy here for a second.
You got another minute on this question because we got to
Yeah.
get finished up at some point.
Yeah, in a bunch of the books, a lot of the things that the nails are doing are driving them forwards, right? It's like driving them to be quicker and get through the engagements and push through and like, you know, connect and go. That's like, you know, a big part of their like wider identity in a lot of the books, right? Same thing with
It just
Karn.
seems so much more like Emperor's Children's design space to me to be fast.
I mean, that's just like a wider problem that GW has, is that they've made 2 melee only things, and if you only one of them can be fast, then only one of them can be good. So they both need to be able to be fast. But I think that they're like, I would like to see World Leaders be a lot more like overwhelming rather than like this thing that like balls up in a tiny thing around Dad and like obliterates a table quarter and then repositions and does it again, and then repositions and does it again. I feel like Eaters should collapse all on you kind of at the same time, and they don't really do that right now because they kind of can't, because
Right.
they're very reliant on Dad.
Can you expand on why you like Fulgrim? 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty straightforward. Just like, again, in Coterie, assuming he's on 100 mil, Coterie kind of asks you to hold something back to take over the late game with, and I want that thing to be active in multiple phases and be really fast and be very scary. Fulgrim fits that bill better than anything in the book, in my opinion. I have a lot of time leveraging a Primarch, so I'm very comfortable doing this. Other people may be less comfortable doing it, and it might be more challenging. But I think he's good. I think people kind of like lose the plot a little bit on expecting him to kill like literally everything the first time he touches it with no buffs, and that's just like not realistic. Nothing does that. Like Angron gets the +1 to wound strat more than almost anything in my World Eaters army. Like you have to use buffs if you want your big things to kill stuff. And the sooner you become okay with that, the sooner you can become okay with using Fulgrim.
Frank's second question: what would need to happen for Templars specifically drives to have trash tier? People to start playing them again. Templars are probably fine.
Yeah,
Nobody plays them.
I'd be
We said this last
genuinely
week.
shocked if Innis did worse than 4-1 with a Black Templar's Iron Storm.
Yeah, I'm also pretty sure that you could just like play like Jack's Gladius list with like
Yeah.
the 3 Impulsors of Sword Brethren and still just like go 4-1 with it pretty consistently.
Yep.
Should GW consider pricing out Space Marine certain Codex units for different chapters? Yeah, probably, but this is just never going to happen.
Yeah, we're too late now. Like
Too
too late
late.
the addition for this to
But yeah,
happen.
JPI should probably cost like 15 points more in Liberator, but it's just not going to happen.
Yep.
I think
do
Liberator
like they
just
make
like
it
Sisters, yeah.
more simple though. Like I
It
think that they're trying to make it just so people can grasp what's going on, and if everything is tweakable in all senses, it becomes a mess of it.
Yep.
I think Liberator JPIs might be one of the best units in the game. And the reason I play Blood Angels. Everything else is just so there to support 300 points of JPIs.
Yeah, they're good.
It's a good data sheet. All right, Nikki D asks about stat check data at RTT level. Unfortunately, RTTs, there are just too many of them, and it's too many tracking issues in terms of data validation and confirming everything that we're just never going to process that much data. But we appreciate the feedback, and if you keep mentioning it, maybe eventually Jeremy will hire somebody else to come in and just data check RTT lists for factions every week. But I think it seems unlikely. It's just not enough. Not enough going on at the RTT level, and it's good for people to have a place to blow off without feeling like it has implications. Blow off some steam.
I mean, we should basically never use ELO to track, or like ELO should never affect your RTTs. I don't think it's like just give we don't have a casual queue in 40K. Like let people use RTTs for that.
Okay, Henry the Wizard asks a bunch of stuff in one question, so I'm not going to post it on the screen. I know some people who like to do about 10th edition's balance and like to use the stats to either confirm or deny their claims. I like the mathematical know-how or true competitive background. How would you quantify periods of time in 40K seasons or patches to be more or less balanced than another within the static data? That is a question that we're going to save for when we have Cliff and or Jeremy and or Nathan on the show, because they're going to be better qualified to answer that than us.
Yep.
But I would say generally, a lot of it comes down to the feel of it. Like, did it feel like you had multiple competitive options within the range? So I would say it's kind of difference between the like second best army and the middle is kind of what I generally care about. Like, do I feel like I can, if there's a best army, that's whatever, right? You can deck for one best army, but if there's two that you have to deal with that have very different stretches, it's very difficult to account for that if the meta isn't balanced. So if the meta is fairly, flat, that's generally okay. If the meta is very disparate and there's like two clear halves and then the middle is quite far away from that, that's when it tends to be problematic for me.
Yep, I agree.
Which is better for singles, Anthony's Creations of Bile list or 30 Possessed plus Bile and Raiders?
I prefer Creations in that space. It gives you a lot more agency into the melee mirrors, whereas like that list in Raiders is kind of trying to just like overwhelm an opposing melee list, and it's vulnerable to getting clobbered. So, write that down.
There you go. And that was from Seagrin. Change your name to include your first name, please. Alex E asks, in a 3-man team's RTT setting, is 3 games in a day a viable tournament format? Yes, but don't have pairings take up a lot of time. I would suggest in this format just do true random pairings and just have it be 2-1 wins. Like, don't try to incorporate too much of the 20-0 stuff because you're not building the teams list in a 3-man RTT format. At this point, you're just playing like trios. It's fine, but yeah, just don't overcomplicate it. Random pairings and do win-loss draw is probably the easiest way to do, or include the 20-0, but set the threshold at like 31, so it's not too crazy. Just 5-mans is weird like that. 3-mans is weird like that.
Yeah.
Is there Nikki asks, is there a place for faction specialists in this meta, or is hopping around to the next best thing still the most ideal? Brian Jones won a 8-round super major with Imperial Knights. Guys, do what you want, man.
I think right now
it ain't that clever.
I think right now is some of the most flat the game's ever been. This is one of the best times to like faction specialist, particularly even in singles, is like a big deal. You like having more experience in your given matchup is significantly bigger of a deal, I think, than like the 3%.
You have to get so much from jumping to a faction in terms of either your personal enjoyment or the power level for it to be worth overcoming like the heuristics that you've built up over the course of playing it.
There's also,
so unless you're doing it for personal reasons, just don't.
There's so many detachments now. The odds that you will be well prepped with a late swap are almost none. And if you play a game a day, you will still not even be almost
there are
close.
Grotmus detachments I'm pretty sure I've not read since Grotmus.
Right.
At this
yeah.
point.
You won't even be close to being adequately prepped against a wider field if you switch too close to something.
Yeah. You have got to be very confident that you are getting ahead of the metagame by faction hopping. And that is a thing that very few people are getting perfect at any time. Right. This is the question that I think Possessed is your answer for, Anthony. What are your top choices for data sheets you'd like to see buffed? What are the current Dredknights Dredknights that should get the profiles improved instead of just points cuts?
Yeah, so I would love nothing more than for Possessed to get locked to a 5-man that costs 200 points, which is 40 less than a 10-man cost right now. And then add 1 to each of their melee stats. Just like strength, AP, damage. Take the packed thing away from them. that gives them dev wounds and give them like advance in charge or something as a data sheet rule. Just
they pack for +1 strength, AP, attack, and damage.
Sure, whatever you want.
There you go. Cool, dude.
I think they just need like what they are. Yeah, it's just like insane to me where they've landed. It's really not the broader space that should be in.
Yeah, I want to shout out Turreted Warriors for my shout for that one. Why are Turreted Warriors toughness 5, 4-up armor save models with 5 attacks, strength 6? It's wild to me. Why can they not be elite infantry? Turrets don't have elite infantry. Let them have some.
Yeah, that seems like a mistake.
Nick K asks, what do you hope for Turrets and GSC in the data slate? For Turrets, I would like something that lets me play an army that isn't Exocrines or exactly Vanguard, because those are the only 2 things that feel like they're good right now. But for GSC, I am hoping for no changes. Is the honestly my best bet. I think the happiest thing to be would be no changes at all. The thing I would like to see from a like small thing perspective is I think you could drop the 10-man neophyte squads could go down to 2 ambush tokens instead of 3, and so could 5-man gene stealers. Because right now they are just terrible to bring back. That is the only thing that I think is like particularly reasonable, and I think you could maybe put 10 points on Reductus Outdoors, put them up to 75 because they're probably too cheap.
Go.
That's it. I could see a 20-man coming down to 5, not 4. You can't make it 4. 4 is too few, but 5 would be probably okay. We've heard your request in our nerfing X screens. Honestly, I would take it just to like have if you could buff like 3 other things to make up for it, because God. Right. JH asks, hi, Christian. I just want to thank you for uploading the semi-finals and finals of the Veizla TTS League. I don't speak Swedish, but so some of the intricacies were lost on me, but there was still lots of insight to be gained from watching Warcast players go at it. Look forward to more content from you guys. Do you want to tell us a bit about the Veizla TTS League and what was going on with that?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jay. Like, I mean, for me, I was not sure if TTS should be something that Veizla should focus on, because I really liked like the physical, the community, all that part. But we saw a big interest of TTS in the Swedish scene, especially. So for sure, Veizla is becoming the place to go to play matches. And then what happened was that can't you put up a league? So we very quickly, Jesper and also Elias put together a Veizla league that we just kicked off in some week. And then when we reached the playoff, I realized like we probably should record this. So like kind of on the spot as it happened, I recorded it, and then we started to build it out, and actually it's been doing tremendously good on YouTube. Also happy to hear that some people are watching it even though it's in Swedish. I think that that's the greatness of YouTube and Google, that actually with caption you can almost understand everything going on. So now we're kicking off this weekend our season 2, and we would for sure improve the broadcast a little bit, but maybe not too much, because we still want people just to play it. But I think that in 40K in general, and I think, Pyra Cup that Anthony was participating in, I almost went over to Poland to broadcast it, on that day, because, I want to see all matches. My dream with Veizla Mega would be that we could stream 100 tables at the same time. Of course, it's not feasible, but I think that that's for sure the next growth for 40K, and happy to hear that the Swedish TTS can also be lucrative for international people.
Yeah, there's maybe a world in there where we start looking at one of the things I want to start looking at doing show-wise is doing like post-haste like reviewing games after they've happened. There's some channels on 40K that do it already, but doing that with some of the more interesting TTS games might be a place to start looking at that for some English content as well. Might have to have a look at that. All right. Next up, we have a question from Sam Lemon. When testing the new WTC maps, what process did you undertake? So for me, I did a bit of help with the design set on the new WTC maps, and what I mostly did was tried playing a bunch of different games on things that were like causing problems, right? Try to take the super L's, try spreading them out, try playing different maps, make sure there's not stupid lines, play through the first couple turns of games, see how it works out, and get a feel for them. And then once you've done the medium version of a table, it's quite easy to update the heavy and the light afterwards. It doesn't take a ton of work. So yeah, just kind of going through those, and then we did an initial pass on them, and then did some feedback, played a few more test games on them, gave some feedback on that, and that was it. It's just play some games. Like, you're never going to catch everything. There was 3 of us plus the WC guys doing this, so we did what we could. But yeah, hopefully the feedback takes well. I don't have anything against Super L's. That was not my feedback. I took them out of mediums. They took them out everywhere else. But rest in peace, Super L's. It will make the boards look a little easier to walk around sometimes. Sam also asks, Christian, where do you feel the ceiling is at for Warhammer as a competitive endeavor? Can it reach the heights of top tier esports?
Oh wow, how many hours do we have? But I think like I'm seeing, and it's nothing that I like bashing. I think that 40k is in a great spot where it is, but for sure I see similarities to esports back in 2007 or something like that. So I think that there is a big growth to be happening, but I think we should also look at the fundamentals in the amount of players. So each year it actually is growing a lot right now. It has been doing it for quite many years, to be honest. And I think that there is a good chance that we can see, a doubling of the population of 40k within the next 2 to 3 years. That's a bit, can we say, what I'm trying to also to help to achieve from my little side. So with that, I think that we can see it going into more towards more, can we say, I wouldn't say professional, because I'm still not sure if this is a hobby where two of us are playing a nice game, or if it's a competitiveness where we are fearful, like sports. I think 40k has more than that, and I think that balance in kind of honoring the community and the game is really important. But yes, I think we're starting to see sponsorships. I think we're starting to see some teams getting sponsors. I mean, it's a very expensive thing to fly around and go to all these tournaments, and it would be great, because I do think that there's a value here. So that's for sure one of the things, of course, with my background, that I'm also would try to support and help the 40k community in the long run. But it's baby steps. I think that putting on this big first event for us at Veizla, it's a massive risk in the way of how will it go, and how can we it's not like I'm going to get a big salary, if we say like that. It's basically working for free for hundreds of hours.
Yeah, that's not
which is fun.
Home run paycheck on the first one.
Right. Acknowledging that the game will never be balanced, asks Josiah Gattel. If you had to choose the top 5 armies for a meta to make the game feel most balanced and fun possible, what would those top 5 armies be? That is a awfully intricate question, but
I don't even know.
I don't even know how I would begin to answer that. Like, one fast melee army, one fast shooting army, one defensive shooting army, one defensive melee army, and one all-comers army. But like, there's so many variants of that. I don't really have an answer for that, unfortunately, Josiah.
Yeah.
All I know is knights aren't part of it.
Poor knights. Always
They're not,
getting
though, right?
shaded.
But I would say this, like, the game would feel a lot better if it was a bit quicker. At the same and then maybe you could start to play like best of threes, and you can come with 3 armies or 2 armies and whatnot. And
you want kill team.
No. But I don't think that that's maybe right. I think actually there is a charm that there is a possibility of making an upset, and still with all these varieties and metas and all, it's still the same people ending in the top spot at all these tournaments. Sure, maybe you lose 1 in 10 or 1 in 100 that was bad to luck, but in general I think this game has a charm, because I feel that if I just roll the dice, if I do my game plan, I can beat anyone.
If you
but in reality,
you have the heart of a warrior, you could always win a game.
That's true.
All right. Question somewhat for NS. What did Super Elves do to hurt you, and why are they now gone? Asks Alex Taus. Super Elves did nothing to hurt me, but they were not representative of what a light or medium table at WTC level should be. So I pulled for them being removed from the light and medium table sets, and then the boards appear to have tested well enough among people that they were then taken out of the heavy tables as well, accepting exactly in tipping point, which I think is fine. I think the boards that we worked on that replaced the Super Elves in Crucible Search were pretty good, and I think the fact that they've decided to continue with them speaks to that being a good choice. So hopefully people will enjoy the new versions. They're still kind of super Ellie, and the tipping point super Fortress board still exists. So
all the new boards that I've played on have been great. I don't like people like looked at some of the new boards today and kind of like lost it a little bit. We're like, oh, this one's so light and this one's so heavy. It's like you got to play on them. It's like, yeah, you have to like move forward to shoot, and it's like, oh god. You know,
the hilarious sort of people who are like, man, the light boards are really light, and I'm like, yeah, dude, shouldn't they be?
Well, like even then, they're not that wild. Like you can still stage on them.
Yeah, you can stage. You just can't hold your expansion, right? Like that's it.
You know, that's why God made sticky strats, man.
That's why God made roll-ups. Yeah, you got to get your goopy objectives.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you explain the rise of IK? Is it more of a USA thing? Look, IK have just continually IK like have the same union rep as Eldar. They're not as strong a union, but they've got the same union rep because they have convinced everybody to keep getting points drops on armigers to the point where you get like buy one get one free on armigers now.
That is genuinely what it feels like. I was legitimately blown away when someone was like, "Yeah, he had 12." And I was like, "Oh, he probably had 12 in agents." They were like, "Yeah, and a big," and I was like, "And a what? And a who?" Yeah, I was pretty taken aback by the cheapness. So I think that I don't know. It's not really like
double big 6 and through 4 units of agents and a Calidus.
I mean, that's also pretty funny.
On Earth.
Yeah, I think that I don't know that this is like the rise of IK so much as it is like they're just kind of cheap enough now that they can play a game.
Fast OC good.
Yeah, I mean, like I say this all the time with my stupid war dogs. Like if I could run them without arms for 20 less points, I would. Like if I could just have the move 12 OC8 3 up 5 up body to just be like go forth, stand there. I would take that every day of the week. But yeah.
All right, and for vanilla, are open board first defender armies still a thing in the current UK WC, or not really from what you saw at Pyra?
I didn't see anybody really do that, and we kind of had answers on deck for people doing that, and we didn't find it super helpful to do that.
Yeah, the new light boards maybe open it up as a better option again, with like there actually being light boards again. So maybe there's a return towards that. But it's the kind of thing that like you would have to hit the metagame from a very specific axis for it to be valuable.
I think as prep has gotten better, the viability of this has gone down. I think in ye olden days, and like when it was the ET, not WTC, you could be like, bam, guns on a table with a Fisher Price castle and a handful of trees that we found outside the venue. I think you could get away with that shit, but I don't think that exists
and Stark still will. Don't get me wrong.
He's gonna because he's gonna bust out the Fisher Price castle and get rid of the middle 2 ruins with it. And he's going to be like, we play with this. And his English isn't going to be good enough to get the Fisher Price Castle off the table. So, yeah.
All right. Aaron Imperialis asks, I'm trying to get a very casual 40k friend into perhaps competitive to take him to tournaments with me. What is a good way to bridge casual Warhammer joy with competitive wargaming skills? Take him to a doubles tournament, dude. Doubles is great.
You could do that, or just like take him to a tournament. Like I just go to a tournament. Tournament's fun. You can do a thing with your buddy. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
I think maybe I can help, as I am this new player, and I mean, I think that one part is go to tournaments, because actually it's a good way of just scheduling to get matches. Like you go there and you will get your 3 or your 5 round matches, and that's just like you will come out knowing so much more. I would also say actually go to a team tournament. So my first tournament that I had in September last year was a team tournament, and the other 4 people, they really helped me and we really bonded, and I was like feeling so much more confident playing with them because they actually supported me with what I needed to focus on. So I would say that, because then you can like prepare the deployment, do the right things, how you should matrix. You can focus on playing like maybe 3 different armies coming into it or prepare for it, and in that way you feel more confident because you know what you're going to probably face in the pairings.
There you go.
Yeah, that helps a bunch.
Anthony is all, and Aaron also asks, Anthony is back. I've been really curious about your creations of Bile and what makes it the best version of the list. Well, the reason it's the best version of the list, I'll answer for that, is that it's the one Anthony wrote first, which means that he's not allowed to change it until there's a new balance update. It's in the bylaws.
Look, that is not even true. It's the first version that I ran at a tournament. But the first versions of the lists that I ran were like, I tried 10 Talons. I tried 4 Blitz. They were fucking garbage, so I cut them and used other things. So, look.
It's the witch's curse. Anthony is allowed, whatever Anthony takes to a tournament first is the best version of the list until the game changes. And that's just how the witch wrote the rules. I
think, 10 for 10 in my last 10 Bile games of my opponent going, oh, wow, the war dogs are actually really annoying. The exact same phrase every single time. And every single time I'm like, would you think they were going to be shit? And every one of them were like, honestly, yeah. And it is insane to me.
I told you about Bruce, right, Anthony?
No, I just know that he did really well playing exactly my list, and I thought that was really funny.
Bruce and I did 3 games in a day of like testing Bonnet's list into me on Yannari.
Sure.
He got like brutalized 3 times. And then we went up to a practice day on the Wednesday, and I played the violist into him on Death Guard, and then he played listen to me on Death Guard, and I beat him. And then I played it into him and 20'd him in 2 turns, and he was like, "Oh, so that's how you do it." And then he went to Manchester and dropped 4 points in Swiss.
God damn
immediately, having seen it played aggressively 1 time.
Yeah,
So,
you look. I
love that boy.
If I could impart no other advice with Bile,
just go forward, dude.
And World Eaters, it's please, I beg of you, stop trying to play a trading game with these armies. They're not designed to do that. They don't do it well. You're just gonna get beat.
You're just gonna be sad.
Yeah, it's a sad way to lose too, because you're like, I put out my unit and it fucking owns, and then your opponent kills them trivially, even if it's 10 possessed, because it's just 10 possessed, and they're gonna hit it with 1,800 points of their army. And you gotta just like not let that happen, you know? Like you gotta be like, you can hit these 10 possessed with 400 points of your army. Maybe they get there, maybe they don't. But next to them is 10 more possessed. And next to them is 10 more chosen. And if you can kind of manage setting up the wave, you'll be in good shape. But
I think you'll hate / respect this one story that I'm going to tell of it, which is that he was playing Smoke and Mirrors, the redeploy one, and he put his Possessed out as his first drop directly across his opponent's expansion objective and purged the foe. And his opponent went, bet, there's no way you'll leave them there, and deployed his entire army on the other side of the board, and then lost the redeploy roll and had to move his Vindicators first, and didn't. So Bruce just left them there. And just ran them directly at Matt's expansion objective.
Fucking fair enough, dude. Yeah. I mean, so that's, I mean, that's like,
Roosh.
I mean, Roosh is definitely part of it. Like, I mean, it's just, you have to set up for like big go turns that remove, a lot of the opponent's ability to hit you back effectively, right? That's the idea.
Jack asks, do you have some examples of factions and detachments that are considered blunters? Invasion fleet nids and stuff like that, like anything that's like that kind of, I just have OC and I do some stuff. Death Guard, Votann can be good for this if you're not as aggressive a player. They just get their points, dude. They stand in the middle and they get points. Yeah,
I mean, IK should be good at this in theory.
Yeah, IK are good at this as long as you dodge like the 2 things that are like existentially designed to murder them in every team comp. Yeah, it's basically just any list
French
of
and Germans though would say that Votans is not blunters; they are just dominating with those.
We are not French or German, so unfortunately, we use we don't get to use the European version of the Votann Codex.
You can use them both ways, right? I think my understanding of like the way Tim executes on Votann is actually largely that it's like he's expecting to get a small win into most things, but if he goes first, he has potential for a big win, or if the other person makes any mistakes, he has potential for a big win, which is exactly the same way that I use World Leaders, right? So I get it. That's kind of the idea. Yeah. It's not meant to be like this 20 factory, but so it goes that humans are fallible and that shit happens sometimes.
And everybody disrespects it until they lose.
Yep.
At which point it's the best army in the game. All right. Why do you think no one is playing Mono Tzeentch? I feel like it's a sleeper. Dude, that army is boring and complicated.
I think it's genuinely bad. I think it folds to melee pressure so hard and so fast that it's really not viable for like high level push.
That too, probably. How come WZ has accepted the glory of Dawn of War into their hearts? Asks Pius.
They haven't.
They haven't. They're just in there so that anybody who wants to be stupid and use Dawn of War can use Dawn of War maps.
Yeah, Dawn of War.
Don't do it. Don't play Dawn of War.
Yeah, Dawn of War is really bad. I say that as someone that stands only to benefit from the inclusion of Dawn of War in mission packs. It is disgusting having to play against World Leaders on Dawn of War. It is the worst experience, one of the worst experiences you can have in the game.
Whatever you think sweeping engagement, however you think bad you think like Search and Destroy is against World Eaters, Dawn is so much worse. You are not
so much worse.
You're not running anywhere, dude. It doesn't. There is no safety.
Yeah, it's bad.
Isaac asks, how would you guys change T-Sons to make everyone not hate us anymore, and so we play abroad decent without being overpowered?
They need to
redo. I don't fucking know.
Oh no, this is not hard. You need to redo Cabals into a mechanic that isn't what they are. And you need their dev wounds, like, sustained lethal thing to just each be once per game the way that Death Watch is. And
you give them the Eldar Seer Council thing.
maybe don't do that. That also seems rough. I think you can
Overly
just
complicated.
I think cabals could just be like different in how they're executed, and I think the dev wounds, like sustained, lethal, whatever, could all be like once per game, and then you could afford to drop T-Sun's points a bunch, and they would just play like a normal army instead of just being like, yeah, I don't care about your save, I don't care about any of your defensive abilities, die. And that's the part that everyone hates about playing against T-Suns, right? No one's like super bothered when like a wizard does wizard shit to you and blows you up. It's the fact that they blow up. Like, if you stand, I'm pretty sure you could stand 4,000 points in front of a Thousand Suns army and lose all of it. And that doesn't feel super awesome. So like, yeah, that should just not be like that, probably.
Yeah, for sure. Right. One last one for Anthony. How do you like the new World Eaters kill team?
I think they're fucking sweet looking. I'm very excited to see what their rules look like. My world leaders are specifically like mech-y, so it's real cool that there are now jackals with robot legs. Like, that worked out dope. High five me.
If they give you infiltrate, what will you do to the game?
Okay, so that would be an error. That would only be a mistake. I don't have like I honestly I would hate that. I think that would be really bad. I think that's like a thing they'd have to like. I can't think of another time where they've just like plucked a keyword off a unit before, but I think they would probably have to do that with this. Yeah, that would just be like a genuinely bad idea. I wish they were just like slightly faster, maybe better.
They should not have given it to Votan. So
yeah, that was a
maybe they've
mistake too. I think that they should just be like slightly faster, maybe more like independent jackals. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe they have scout, right, but not infiltrate. Yeah.
Okay. And Davin endorses taking new players to team events to get them into it. What are your thoughts on hull spam in the current game state? Dude, fire dragons sure do exist right now.
Fire dragons don't solve hull spam. I think hull spam is a legit problem. Honestly, one of the like more eloquent people I've seen lay out this problem is actually Ashley Thompson in our Discord. She rallies against this frequently, about how like, you know, the proliferation of hull spam in 10th is actually like one of the more problematic parts of it.
There's so many vehicles in this game, yeah.
Yeah, like every given game that you play, like, you know, I think there was like a reasonable point in like the stratification of toughness, right? Like that was a good part of 10th, right? That's like a cool thing that they did. And then they fucked around and made like these tanks that are now like T9 and 10, like 90 to 150 points, and like T11 tanks are like also like 140.
It's insane how cheap a land fortress is for like 220 for toughness 12 to up save.
Dude, just like the cheaper Russ holes are like wild, right?
Yeah, like 135.
Yeah, so like I think a lot of that stuff, and like this is honestly like this is one of the
There's
areas
also just like, sorry, go for it.
This is one of the things that confuses me most when I see complaints about WTC terrain, because everyone's all like, you know, oh, I can't use your stuff and you can't move around, and it's like, well, you're also the same person that's like, I'm mad that there's so much hull spam on GW terrain, because there is a correlation there.
There's also still tons of hull spam on WTC terrain, which is the bit that always confuses me. Like, yeah. Dude, we still just play like 7 to 8 tank death guard.
Yeah, I mean dude, when I played home, he had 10 or some shit holes. He just had so many. Yeah.
It's wild just looking at. Sorry.
That's what it seems to be a problem with the game, that you always choose almost the cheapest one of any kind, like the cheapest dreadnought, the cheapest tank, the cheapest unit, whatever, the cheapest jump packer. Like that's have seeemed to be the theme, as even I have understood it. So
yeah, I mean,
hell, dude, my LVO army had 6 hulls and a marine army.
Right, that's crazy. Like that's insane. You know, one of the first things I looked at when this last patch, when they gave ultras +1 to wound, was like doing something like that shit that Harrison did to me at that Alpine we went to, where it was like, oh, you get 14 hulls and some infantry in this Ironstorm list.
Dude, there was a guy that went like played Ironstorm with 6 rhinos, 6 razorbacks filled with tactical marines that went 4-1 at GT.
I believe that. That sounds real.
Just like tank forward. There's so little downside to being a vehicle right now. Like you just you can't get tagged. You can stay in combat and shoot them. Things can shoot into you if you're vehicles. Like there's just so many rules benefit being a vehicle right now.
Yep.
And concentrating wound output like is generally better, right? So
yeah. So it's been a trip. I think that I would love to see, you know, more like specific options for that.
I have a few super chats to run through, and then I have got a couple things I want to talk about before we finish up, and then I'll let everybody get away. Right. First of all, Ben Majuric, what are some terrible things you'd rather have than the flu? Thank you for being a member for 2 months, Ben.
Dude, the end of this Mortal Coil, holy fucking Christ, that flu bee kicks ass. I have never been that sick in my adult life. Like, it was much worse than having COVID several times was.
For sure. Scott Nagu, thank you for the $5. It says, love the channel, guys. Where do y'all see Death Guard going? Directly forward with 10 hulls.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm actually genuinely excited to see what their codex looks like. I think there's a lot of room for that codex to be interesting.
Get possessed as well. Blight Lords, why are they damage 1?
Yeah, I mean, Blight Lords should get Deathwing Knighted, not possessed. You want it the other way.
Yeah, they should get new things.
Yes.
It'd be nice to see them get like actual damage removals. Feel No Pain would be nice. You could give them did that about their Feel No Pain maybe.
I think
all
they
right.
are in a pretty cool state right now. Also giving, I think at WTC, I think it was 0 death guards, or if it was 1 or something. Like,
France had them. Yeah,
France had
them.
them.
France. Sorry, but basically it was not representative, and now I think they are in a cool state.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot more of them.
It turns out that they just having the best exorcist, the best indirect in the game now, the Exorcist God is pretty good for your factions viability as well.
It bounces you around, right?
I am so sick of Playbush Crawlers shooting me. Matt B says, meeting everyone at Pyro is awesome from the Command Protocols podcast.
Oh, Matt was super awesome. He was
Matt's
really
great.
cool.
I love Matt.
Yeah.
Matt and I are going to a tournament in Germany together. It's going to be great.
Oh, tight. Yeah, having him around at Pyro was great. It was good meeting him in person.
Nikki D. Williams sends us $2 and says, we praise the return of Pickles on stream.
That's right. I don't know.
Thank you for the Pickles.
Around somewhere.
How's Pickles handling the move?
She's great now. She actually, so the first time we moved her in with us, it was real rough. It took like weeks for her to acclimate. Here, like an hour after people left, she was like, oh, this is my house now, bitches, fuck you. And then just like kind of took over the place. So yeah, she's been queen of the castle.
Right. And Daniel Palani sends us $10 and says, always love to see my boy Ant. Right. I have two things I want to quickly touch on. One is that I did some bonus content this week. I was on the 6++'s Thursday night fight. So if you want to see me throw down with some Death Guard, highlighted by Tom Lohman of Team England's coaching squad from last year and prep squad for this year, you can catch that on the 6++ YouTube channel. I played Yunari. Tom walked into all of the rakes. It was a really fun game. I would highly recommend watching it and give them a shout out so they'll have me back. Because I would love to keep doing more content like that. It's great fun. Just getting to play some TTS in my underwear. Definitely not. I won't lose to Eldar in my own home, but I'll play them. The second thing is that I was blown away by the response to last week's bad news. I don't want to go too much into it today, but thank you to everybody who reached out. There were a ton of really nice comments. A lot of people reached out and messaged me to say that they'd had similar experiences, or that they were reaching out to their local community to deal with some of their problem characters and stuff like that, which was really awesome to hear. Not that you had problem characters, but that you felt like you could be inspired or take some agency to go and speak to your local area's trouble and deal with that, which was really awesome. I have had a response back from the UKTC seeing that that they are taking some steps to handling it. One, doing some additional judge training, and also some form of something with the individual involved. I don't want to go too much into it more, but yeah, it was great to have them reach out. So I'm, as far as I'm concerned, considering the matter closed. So yeah, please don't give them any shit for that. And yeah, massive respect to the UKTC for reaching out and saying that they were going to take some steps.
I mean, all shit given to the UKTC aside, they are very, very good about taking feedback. And
and they changed Burden of Trust. So Burden of Trust is gone now. Yeah. It's like we're all just living in a good life.
Yeah, I've only had good experiences going to UKTC events for the most part, and they are genuinely quite good about taking feedback.
Right. Now, the plug section this week is going to belong to Christian, because Christian has borne with us for 2 hours of us doing our usual shit talk. So Christian, take it away. Where can people find more of you if they want to see Veizla content, if they want to watch the streams from the Veizla Mega or get tickets? Where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so I mean, the easiest is discord.gg/Veizla, or we actually launched a very simple website that actually built with Grok on Veizla.gg, and there you can also find all the information for Veizla Mega. I think that especially if you are in Sweden, if you are in Europe, maybe around the world, if you have the opportunity to come either for the team tournament or just to come in for a single day tournaments, we're going to run them every day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Or if you just want to hang around with a Warhammer community, like try to make it to Sweden, Jönköping in June for the Veizla Mega. We're trying to pull off something really great, and of course, if it goes great, hopefully we can do even more. And then we will continue supporting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
while we were live, Brian had started initiating, making this potentially happen for Team Stat Check. So
We're trying.
Wow, yeah,
we're
that
gonna
would be
start.
an honor for us, and also hopefully something really cool for you guys too. Because
It'd be
we
great.
we're really trying to make something good, and I mean with Veizla we're going to continue supporting the community, as I said, with the TTS, but also in the way that trying to make these Google spreadsheets for each big tournament where you can find all the armies and those type of things. Like
They're absolutely fucking incredible. I think I have like every single one of them in a folder. I refer to them almost daily. They're the best. Thank you so much.
all good. And I think that that's what we also maybe I don't want to promise too much, but we're also looking into how can we on the wider space help Warhammer 40k when you play a game and improve the whole part of it, because I think it's fantastic. I think Games Workshop is doing a fantastic job. I think the WTC is an amazing tournament, but I think there is a lot more that can even be done to make it even easier, because god damn it, like it's complicated to play 40k, and that's a charm, but I would love to see even more can join in with us in the way that I had the opportunity to do so.
The more we can lower the barrier of entry while keeping the top level as interesting as it is, the better the community will be for that growth.
100%. So thank you so much for bringing me on to this show, and
No, thank
also
you so
be able
much for
to
joining us, Christian.
speak with you guys and talk a bit 40k.
Yeah, right. I've got to do the worst part of the week, which is the bit where I have to do the call of the high five because Nathan's not here. So feel free to check out, guys. But if you want to hear your name read out at the end of the show, you can check out patreon.com/statcheck. $15 a month gets you added to our call of the high five tier, where we'll call your name out at the end of the show. And you can also pick up a bunch of extra perks in person if you manage to meet some of the specific hosts, like getting a high five off of Nathan. And you've got little challenge coins and things like that. Yeah, go and check it out. Otherwise, stat-check.com, patreon.com/statcheck. $5 a month gets you access to the Discord community, all that good stuff. And thank you to all of our sponsors: Red Dragon, Wheel and Yutani, G15 Games, and Saltar Games. You can find all the links down in the description below. And I'm going to do the call to high five now. So I have Christopher. Hey, Nathan, can you insert something witty for me here, please? And thank you, Irvine. Thank you. Thank you to Willow Weeks. Thank you to Dan F. Thank you to Luke Dan F. McCarthy. Thank you to David, 6 Rogaldorns is a legitimate list Clark. Thank you to David EIEII here. I think I had a stroke. Thank you to James H. Thank you to Colton Dan F. Miller. Thank you to Fungus. Thank you to John V8 Gang. Can I claim all the time I spent looking at the meta dashboard as work experience or working in Tableau? Yes, you can, especially if you work at that company that apparently uses us in their training for Tableau, which is fantastic. Thank you to Cam F. Dan Morton Hog Emoji. Thank you to Archon Rahal. The correct way to hobby your brain is to model and paint the cat to look like Pickles. Discuss.
True. Real and true. Whoever is not doing that, get on it.
Thank you to Josiah Gathel. Thank you to Tank Commander Frankie. Thank you to Isaac Where My GSC Buffs Tarada. Thank you to I ran out of time to think of a funny joke this week. Sorry. Thank you to Thomas filling rhinos with tiny Stroopwafel liquor bottles for Koijin. Please do that. I would like to see more of that.
Oh, that
I'll see you at ETC. Thank you to I need to update this so I don't get mocked for having an old status. That counts as an old status. Update it. Thank you to Free Space for NS. I'm leaving that as it is. Thank you to Tom Malachi McKyson's overly aggressive Scottish accent H. Thank you to. It turns out the threat you need to add for people to read a player pack is, in fact, super heavy walkers having true line of sights at all times. And thank you to Thanks for the Stats. Much appreciated, everybody, for being part of that little terrible ritual that I deeply hate every week, but I know Nathan loves it. Everybody, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to Christian for joining us. Please do remember to check out Veizla.gg, and we will hopefully see you at any events. If you're at a tournament this weekend, very best of luck. I am a GT in Dundee this weekend. If you are looking for a last-minute ticket for GT in Dundee, check out the Saltar Games website or drop me a message. I can hook you up because there is a first GT running at Saltar. So yeah, please do come say hi. It's going to be like 20 players, but it still counts. I'm going to make Jeremy. Change the stats range because he did it for himself. So if it's like 22, we're just dropping it down again. All right, guys. We'll catch you all later. Have a fantastic weekend.